Welcome, Sensei Fran Charlton. Thank you for joining us for an episode on the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you both over the last couple of weeks, and from that fateful phone call, right, Chris?
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, that I was thinking about this, like just obviously leading up to this podcast, and just thinking like. Probably before when I got your phone call, I was like still in like a bit of a funny old headspace, to be fair. And I got just got a phone call, and he started telling me all about obviously this online magazine, and I was just trying to get out the door at work, and I can't even remember if it was like on a Friday or something like that, and I was just like, who is this person calling me? Like, why are we talking about? And then it was just like, right, what do we want? And then we got talking, and he was telling me all about like things about like your experiences with karate, and I obviously like, I don't know, it must be an overshare, and I'm like just started like telling you what was going on with me, and I don't know, I think we were both, you were sent to call me at the right time, and probably likewise, you know, and yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind with everything like since then, really, with just a lot of the karate things that we've been speaking about privately, you know.
Yeah, it was quite a moment because you're right. It was Friday. I had to cook. I was like, oh man, I thought I'd finished in the office today, and I've got this intuition. I've got to make this phone call now. All right, do it, and. You know, I get these nudges, and the timing was just perfect, and you were so cool considering what you were just going through, and I caught you in this sort of weird moment that was going on, a sort of breakdown to breakthrough moment.
Yeah.
We push for a lot in karate to hopefully learn something new, rather than leave or get angry or something like that, and you were in that sort of moment, and timing was everything, and I think it just, there was something clicked there.
Yeah,
and
definitely. Yeah.
About where we've been going, and I think there's a new breed of karateka, hopefully Budo people all the way through, that are tired of the old way of doing things and the lack of communication and the lack of openness, and a very tiny amount of our story being told. And as a result, I think not enough caring. I don't mean to sound a bit mummy. I don't mean it like...
No, I know what you mean. No. I know what you mean, yeah.
Not enough caring, because people aren't talking about the consequences of some of the things that have been going on. And it's been rough for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is there's a lot of people out there that it's been rough for as well. This is the thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think... we probably go for a step where we maybe talk it out of existence somehow, get it all out of our system, make it public, and then hopefully the generations ahead of us don't have to put up with nonsense and have a more even approach to something that's called karate do, not just karate, but a way, a path of just becoming a better human being, and I think that karate offers.
Yeah, I can 100% agree. But I'll tell you what, we've raced a bit. We've come flying out the blocks here at the start, so I'm gonna wind it back a bit and just sort of start like we do with most people is and just say like, how did this crazy karate journey start? For you.
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna. I think I can get through this without breaking. I've had to rehearse it a bit, in case we did get to this point. So basically, my in a very violent relationship, and the chap was bad. It was bad, and she had to. I could see her trying to work out how she could. Remove herself from this relationship, because you need to remember the people that beat their partners. It's not necessarily men to put them in always, but in this case it was. They're very clever at isolating their partner before they do that. And in this case, making her completely dependent on him and us as a family. He wasn't my father. It was really, really difficult. We were really hemmed in. And she started doing various things as she needed to figure out how to get out of this relationship completely. And so one of the things she did was start karate. You know, it was just a small Shotokan karate club down the road. And
how old were you at this point, Fran?
About 11 years old, 10, 11, because I started at 10, 11. So I was in my last year of primary school, so I'm not entirely sure. I think it was 83, no, maybe a bit later. I was about 10, 11 years old. So
did you start doing the karate and then sort of like your mother like wanted to join in, or was it your mother was the driving force? She wanted to start and you went along?
Yeah, basically she started obviously to arm herself, right?
Of course, yeah.
You know, you got to remember in those days, in the 80s, it was hard karate. It wasn't soft. No. I'm trying to put my language together now. It wasn't the very considerate stuff that we practice now, because we're not in wartime or have a system. You know, it was all about Budo spirit and really, really tough. So she went to arm herself. That was her priority. And so after it must have been, I say, about 5 months of practice, because she got her first grade, so she was a 9th Q, that he really went for her. And she fell back and he was trying to strangle her, right? And in the process, so she was flat on her back. And so if you're thinking about the power of what karate actually offered her, in the process, you know, a cup got smashed. So in that position, she managed to get up, twist him off, with definitely the power of what karate had offered her. Because there's no technique involved at that point, right? You know, the hands there. So, but with the power that was offered, that she'd learned.
And the confidence, I imagine, as well, that the karate would have offered her. They would have given her that little bit of something in there to say, yeah,
that's it. And it clicked in just at the right moment, I would say. And he got thrown onto the broken cup in the process, and that's basically the last time we saw him. Result.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so traumatic for everybody involved. Yourself at 11 years old, and
then she said, "Oh, you might like this karate stuff, Fran. Why didn't you go down and check it out?" So I went down and gave him a 30p.
30p, the good old days. Wow.
and I didn't look back. It's the first thing that connected me properly with myself that I didn't get told off for doing. I wasn't crap at, and just made me feel really, really good. So yeah, I haven't looked back actually. So that's really how I started, and then just super connected with it, and it still does for me today what it did then, which is kind of level out my body. It's a touchstone. It gives me peace. I mean, a lot of angst because, you don't know the full story of what I've been through with it, but that's settling back down again, something always to look forward to.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I think people are lucky if they find, not everybody can find that one thing or that hobby, if you want to call it, a hobby, that they really connect with. And again, I'm sure as we go along, like, like we was talking about sort of at the beginning there, when hobbies get taken away, can almost get taken away from you, all the joy gets sucked out of it, Yeah. But so who was? What was the name of the karate club that you first started training at?
Hilarious. Actually, I found it delightful. I should say it was just Warminster Karate Club, but I posted a picture on my Facebook because I went to a camp in Westbury about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, with Amos Sensei and Mark Carroll, and as I was coming in the door, the guy that was checking us in was my original teacher, who I completely lost contact with. Spoken to him once or twice over the last since I left Warminster and moved into Aikido.
That must have been such a nice shock.
He said, "Hello, I heard you And the guy's like, "Are you still alive?"
Yeah. How old was this gentleman? And how amazing if he's still training.
Well, he likes to come along to events to help on the doors and stuff like that.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, Lionel Wheeler. I mean, yeah, what a mountain. Amazing. It was delightful, absolutely delightful to meet him again. He was so good to myself and my family.
Oh.
Yeah, what can I say? He was amazing guy.
And I'm sure you find, like, as an instructor, you know, that I suppose an instructor is one title, you know, possibly family therapist, you know, confidant, friend. You know, it comes with quite a few responsibilities being an instructor, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think because of the nature of what I'm looking for in my karate, which is not just training, I'm really lucky to have Amos Sensei as my, you know, hardcore, deep, drilling, unrelenting sensei, and then John Turnbull Sensei, who just wants to be called JT Sensei, who is like my heart sensei, is the best way to describe it. And we meet once a week on Zoom to break it all down, whether it's whatever's bugging me at the time, whether it's deep dive into a kata that you know, I can assume is one way and we need to take it another, or anything that's going on in my mind, including the types of conversations we've been having last week and the article that I wrote last week. I'm like, look, I'm really thinking about this stuff and I've had some questions asked of me. Can we talk about that today? Right, what's on your mind? And, you know, he's I don't know how old he is. He's late 70s, I think. And I don't know if he's done 60 years, something ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
Of Karate and 50 years Qigong. So he's really got his mental and emotional life together. And I really think we need mentors like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's like, I mean, someone can, like, you can tell me about this, you know, JT Sensei, and it sounds like a fantastic bloke. But this is the conversation that we have all the time, and we've had on with other guests on the podcast, is that there's, you know, it's like you want to speak to people like that, because, you know, I've approached other people about coming on the podcast, and it's almost this like mentality of, oh no, I haven't really got anything to contribute or anything, you know. And it's I don't know what it is. Like, some people, like, that either they're just maybe a little embarrassed, it could be, again, they're a little bit embarrassed, they just don't want to do it, or they feel like, again. But then there seems that it's the same sort of answer I seem to be getting, like, all the time. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I've got anything to say or anything like that. It's like, well, how long have you been, like, you know, doing karate? Oh, like 30, 40 years. And you're like, well, then I think you've got a story to tell. You know, it doesn't even have to be that. I think sometimes they think, oh, you're looking to talk to people who have, you know, achieved great success in tournaments or anything like that. I mean, it's not, talking to those people is nice, and hearing about, like, maybe the highs and lows of competing in tournaments, but that's just not, like, what it's all about. You know, it's these people have a story. Now, I just don't know whether, I don't know either, maybe the associations they belong to or something. It's like, I don't know if it's like that maybe drilled into them there somewhere, that, you know, like, oh, you're not good enough, or you'd still, you know, I don't know. There's something more to it, to me, than oh no, I haven't got a story to tell. It's like they've somehow been a little bit brainwashed into that response, because it's almost the same response every time.
Amazing. Yeah, I think also it's sort of deeper also in terms of cultural conditioning. I think we're really good in the UK at thinking that we're crap or shit, you know, just like down on ourselves basically, and we don't. Yeah. So I was at one session, we had John Mullin Sensei come over from Staten Island, New York, to Sweden. And I hadn't realised that he was really quite short. In fact, my height, I would say, I'm about 5'6", 169 centimetres. And he was about to go into the dojo, and I was walking in behind him, made sure he had everything he needed, and he kind of sort of did something like that, and he said, "Time to be great." And I was like, "Excuse me?" Said, "Time to be great." And later on then, I took him up. So what do you mean by that? And this is like a threefold story, really. He said, "Look, people don't want me in there not being at my best and not performing well and not being absolutely brilliant and fulfilling their expectations. Because there's something you've got in, I'm a sports therapist, I help people with injuries and a health and wellbeing coach. And there's something called this aura effect. And there's been studies done on it, yeah. And if you have this aura of greatness, and you teach in the way that John Mullin does, which is, I've never seen anything like it. So you can have a room full of people doing this thing. "Oh, I'm no good. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do that." You put them in a room with him for an hour, and you've got people doing stuff they never thought that they could do. And it's partly because they just feel so great. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's like a mindset, and then it shines out through their body. And people also say about John Mullin, they also think he's really tall. As I said, he's my height. And I was really surprised about that, because he feels like he's 6 foot tall. Yeah. Said to me when he's in that environment. And this aura effect, it rubs off on people, and they start being able to do stuff.
It just makes them feel like, I don't know, better about themselves, doesn't it, or something? Yeah.
Good energy.
Expand. What? And there was a video, a sort of face thing. I did a series of like recordings a long time ago before Facebook shut my account a while ago. That's another story. And I went out there and I did a video called The Big Brag. And I just walked up the road and I told everybody what I thought I was brilliant at. And I bragged it too. I'm great at this. I'm a genius at karate, but nobody knows it yet. And I did all this bragging. And I had people saying, it made me feel really uncomfortable. But you're right. We should be more, ideally, should is a crappy word, sorry, but just big yourself up. Because then when you're an instructor in a space working with people, it just rubs off on them. That's as much part of the instruction as the actual details of kata or whatever you're teaching, Kion, is an attitude from the instructor, and it does rub off, and you gradually fill your students with confidence as well. It's all about mindset, really.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean quite a few of the previous guests that we've had on the podcast, myself included, who was lucky enough to train with Sensei Inoida. I mean, everyone, and I remember that. Soon as he stepped through the dojo doors, it was just like all eyes. That was it. They were on him, and he had that, that magic.
Honestly, he'd come in the room, and it was in the days when we had, the halls, the gigantic halls full of black belts, because there was lower grades in the black belt. And he came in, and it's for me as a kid, so I did Shotokan at 16. It was like the room just became electrified. And I would rather have died than not done 200% more than what I was capable of doing. And if he stood in front of you, and I always put myself in the front line in the middle, just to put myself under extra special pressure. And I'm a real show-off, actually, but I'm best in that state. I perform better in that state, and I knew it. And I wanted to know what to do. And I wanted to be there and be taught all these weird and wonderful katas, and not know them and learn them, 2 or 3 times through. And I could at that time. I could manage that. And there was this electrical atmosphere, and so inspiring. It's unbelievable. We were really lucky in the south of England, because it was every month to 6 weeks we could about get to train with him. So we just
amazing.
Just this circuit continuously, and then Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I was like I've really only go off the stories that my father and all the older guys that taught me, about Crystal Palace. But that must have just been amazing.
Oh, just crazy, to have been raised in that atmosphere and had those opportunities. And I ended up doing my knee down at Crystal Palace, and there was, for me, I didn't really know who these guys were, but it was Tanaka and Osaka, and I'm always forgetting the name of the other guy, were just on my table, and it was the knee down table, and I was knee down there, and I was just, oh my god, I had 3 Japanese people on my table. That was all I knew. But later on, I'm like, oh my god, it was the.
Well, I think anyone that got to train, if anyone was lucky enough to train with Osaka Sensei, just mind blowing.
Yeah, he's my go-to now for technical. I mean, if you read Richard's book, I think he says, Richard Sensei's book, he says there was this thing with, Osaka and Richard Sensei's teacher.
Asai Sensei.
Yeah, but his pickup, Yahara. Oh my God. So, the difference was like...
just a little bit of difference, yeah.
Coming up to competition would be, okay, Yahara would do 4 hours a day, but Osaka would do 6. And then you see Osaka in competition and he'll whiz off one of the brown belt katas and makes it look like a, Heian kata. When somebody manages to make a complex kata look simple, you're like, well, then that's just something else going on in that moment. Then you end up looking at real details of how they're moving, and it's like their body is so well trained, they're almost able to make assumptions with their body. And then you've got your Hara style, who
just like brute force,
like fall over. So you have these both extremes, and I really like to draw from both of them, depending on my mood and how my hips are, really.
So I'm just gonna bring it back just a little bit, but so obviously when you were younger, sort of how often, like how many times a week did you sort of like get yourself into training?
Well, they didn't know anything about how to take care of teenagers then, so it was 5, 6, 7 times a week I was training.
Well, for 30p, I don't blame you. I'd have been straight down there 30 pounds.
I mean, we were really with the close-knit community we had in Wiltshire. The nights worked really well for training. Offered as many weekend camps as possible. But, I was totally malnutrition. My diet was wrong. My muscles had not really formed on the bone properly yet. And I was doing everything you're absolutely not supposed to do at that age.
Press ups on the knuckles and
ridiculous. I remember one session with people. It was kumite, a whole session on this weird floor, and then it's like you do whack 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 whack, and then I slipped up because the soles of my feet came off. Bliss. And get up, get on with it, run up and down.
Yeah, I remember that though. There was like we've said it before. This like harder, faster, stronger all the time. And it was if you're injured, you just keep training. You're injured, don't worry about that. You'll be fine.
Shake it off.
I've got to walk.
Yeah, get a wet towel on it. Be fine. Which I actually used that. I actually used that old saying. I thought after I'd said it, I was like, I sound like. Certainly like one of my parents, I'm sure, for saying that. Was my eldest son, he was one of his football teammates at the weekend, got tackled quite hard and went down quite hard, and then he got up and he sort of like looked like he was in a bit of pain, and the coach had him off. We didn't have any more substitutes, and I thought, this lad, he goes down, I don't want to be too mean, but looks like he goes down a bit easy sometimes. So I was just like, be all right. Then, lo and behold, later his mum posts a picture with his fractured wrist in the group chat. My first instinct was like, put a wet towel on it, be all right. Which I did put, and then after about 10 minutes, I thought, No need to message again. Genuinely, I hope he's all right.
Really bad.
It's I'm really glad I trained through that. I'm sure you've heard that said before.
Yes.
I know what I'm capable of, and it's awful if I want it to be. And
I remember how did you? I mean, obviously, as a woman, how did you know back then? How did the men treat you in the dojo or at the courses, or even the fellow women? How was that dynamic for you then?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really great question because I've thought a lot about it, and I think I noticed two things. I got really lucky with my instructors, my karate instructors, and later on my Aikido instructors. It was very natural, but I was very, very hardcore, and I didn't let myself get away with anything. The big problem was in competition. So at 16, then, you were in the women's categories, okay?
Yeah.
And, I really was as thin as a rake. And I was up against women like me that are just built like brick, you know what? Solid.
Certainly do.
Yes.
Yeah, so being really tiny, like rake-like, and I would normally win Kata, right? This is what was happening as I was building my career. I knew what I wanted to do. And then they just kicked the hell out of me in Kumite. That's it. So I was floored, basically, to my mind, continuously in Kumite, especially at the regional stuff. Lots of full-on punches to the diaphragm,
Yeah.
Been there.
And it was really hard because they were big and heavy. And I guess because there weren't many of us, the girls had to go up. But it was also that time historically where girls were not really doing much training. There was hardly any, and boys, there was hardly any of my age group in. It was, it was the end of Thatcher's Britain, or late term. It was a disaster sports-wise. I wasn't allowed to do football, cricket or rugby, which I wanted to. It was all netball. Girls were switched off sports. Sports was having all the money withdrawn, much more than, it felt like more than now. But we were in a weird space, I think, about training. So there weren't many teenagers doing anything. And even though it was huge, in this part of the world, Shotokan karate, huge. It was really weird. It was a bit scary because I was a relatively small person, and my only kumite partners were guys. And that did scare me in a way. I learned a sort of natural fear of kumite because of that, and being hit around a lot by the women.
I mean, it's funny you say that because I remember, at my father's club in Grantham, it was notorious, like pretty rough there at times, and even as a young lad. I remember with the ladies that trained there, they did not give any quarter, and it didn't matter. And I remember being paired up one time and thought, maybe the first time I did some kumite with one, and I was like, okay, well, just not gently does it, and I was like really respectful. First time in Chudan always bang, it just put me down. I was probably like 10, 11 years old. I was like, oh my God, but yeah, there was no quarter. It was
really tough, and I've heard men kind of complain about this a little bit with women. I think women, I don't do it now, but it would be just a reason to be able to practice your techniques a little bit harder if you were paired up with guys. Not now. I don't think it's like that anymore. But in the old days, as I said earlier on, we were in Wiltshire. I don't know, was it 3 or 4 weeks ago now? Sorry, I can't quite get it. But the old guard were there that I trained with all those years. Those guys they're tough.
Yeah.
And they're generation also, right? They're in Gadambarai. And, somebody's going on about something and they just stay there.
Yeah.
Nobody's moving. I checked down. I was like, I'm starting to feel at home. All right.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you said some of the old guard were there, I was going to say, well, they were all there with like new hips and knees, were they? Or like, were they?
I should have gone around and asked actually, but I don't think they remembered me. A lot of them, I knew a lot of their faces, but it's usually neat, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I've found with some of the, like I say, the people that that were, I say, like quite a bit older than me, because as I say, I was quite a bit younger, but a lot of them double hip replacements, new knees. Yeah, there's certainly something about the training back then. They'd say it had, even though it must have felt great at the time, there must have been something quite wrong about it. So to be having all that, people having to have that type of surgery.
Very, very, very wrong. I would say by the time I was 17, I couldn't sit down for more than 10 minutes without being in agony, especially in the knees. I think that was a combination of, from what I know now, my hamstrings were way, way too tight. So if you have your knee joint and say you have your little patella underneath, and if your hamstring is too tight, it basically flattens it on the knee.
Right.
Yeah? That's one problem. The other problem was the Frank Brennan stance.
The really long Gidambra.
Your knee. If you're straight over the knee. Mm-hmm. That's just really, really bad, using the wrong muscles. Now we have it sorted so that the placed properly, the knee is no longer in that position, so that you can be dynamically connected from the tip of your toes through to the back foot and up through to your neck and shoulders. So it's a completely different way of connecting the body dynamics of the stances, or the muscle trains, I would call them in my clinic. It's a really different, it's much safer what we're doing now. Well, I would say completely safe. The problem with mats, I think, mats are my experience of what I've injured myself on, not wooden floors.
Yeah, it can give you a bit of a false. I don't know. If you train on mats all the time, it's just so different to the wooden floor, isn't it?
Yeah, you get toes caught. I mean, especially within our training now, where we're moving, if we turn, we're turning on the heel, say, and it's really easy to get toes caught. And the biggest problem I had during when I needed to put some mats down on a concrete floor I was training on when we moved back from Sweden, it's constantly rebalancing the feet, constantly.
Yeah.
Instead of the rebalancing going up just through the body on the solid floor, and you know where you are.
Yeah.
It was minutely always having to play out in the feet and the ankles. So feet and ankles on mats,
I've seen a few toes go off at 90-degree angles, like in competition and things like that, and it's again not by anyone mistiming a sweep or anything like that. It's a toe gone in the mat, they've moved, and it's gone. Is then facing the wrong way.
It's just, if we're gonna have sweeps, I suppose, then. Well, I guess, I mean, it's a whole other health and safety problem these days, but I definitely don't. Give me a sprung floor or an old school floor, wooden floor that's built on concrete any day over something like that. I'd much rather know where my body is in space, for sure.
So you were saying, like with competition and things, so I remember some of the information you'd sent me over that you did rather well at, was it the Shotokan Cup?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which the Shotokan Cup was a big old back then was a big old competition.
Yeah, I was really delighted, and I was very focused about where I was going. Like you hear Ed Sheeran sort of saying, "None of this was by accident. I spoke all of this into existence." Yeah, I was like, I did that for what I planned to do. I was very clear. I wanted to start winning regionals, Kata and Kumite, no problem. I wanted to get placed at a national event, so that then I could be put in Fighting Arts magazine. I'm sure you must know what that is.
Yes, I do. Yeah, my father used to get. I remember getting that arriving. We still at my work. Over the years, I think he had them all. I don't know, like somewhere. And he started just brought them all into work, and they were in the canteen at work for years. And even some of the guys there just be reading them.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was on my aims list, was to get into Shotokan magazine. and get placed at a Shotokan Cup or the National at Crystal Palace, and then get access to the squad and just squad training because my aim was to represent my country.
Of course, yeah.
That was my aim, and I knew it was a step process. And well, that Shotokan Cup day was really interesting, and yeah, I came placed. Like I've got the medal somewhere. I should have got silver, I know, but we had a score. I thought I had to do my second, not so good kata. Nijishi-ho has been my tuku kata forever, and I chose the wrong kata, so I ended up with a bronze. But it didn't matter. It was a big step forward. At 17, I was like, right, give me a couple more years, or that'd be great. But something struck me that day that I kind of saw the light. That my touch control was perfect. We had no mitts.
Yeah. I remember it. Yeah,
just the good shield.
Oh, perfect touch control. I understood suddenly if I was attacked, I couldn't do anything. I was that well trained in touch control. This is one of the debates I know that is sort of coming in with or ancient really about sports karate. Why would you do it? I just suddenly understood so much stuff at the same time about me focusing on competition. And this was one. And the other was, so I basically fulfilled a whole bunch of aims on that one day, which was I was going to get Fighting Arts magazine. I had access to squad training, which put me on the way. And I was not fulfilled at all. It didn't light me up at all. And I had worked so hard to be there. I'd carved out a place, beaten, trained my butt off, just everything you can imagine. I loved it, but 5, 6, 7 times a week, that's hard graft on the body. I was terribly injured and in pain all the time because of how we shouldn't have been training me as a teenager. And I just saw the light. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I'm not going to keep working as hard as I am in an area that's not actually what I'm looking for. And it was some kind of fulfillment, and it just didn't give it to me. I was like, well, screw this. And I retired from competition immediately. I was like, no, this is not it.
That's, to get to sort of, I guess, have that, I don't know, revelation or...
It was.
Like feeling, like that sort of that. What age would have that been? Did you say 17? Did you say?
Yeah, 17, and I'm a bit like that. I have policies, and if it's not working and it's not really giving me that gold that I'm looking for in my spirit, and I didn't like also what being so good was doing to my ego. I don't think I was becoming a good person. I didn't have time for people that weren't as committed as I was in the dojo.
I know so many people that were have been like that.
The first thing I did when I met my first sensei just now is I said, look, I've got to apologize for my behavior. I know it was a very, very long time ago, but I'm really sorry. Just for being so egoistic and so focused and not time for anybody else. It was a classic. And he was just so gracious. He said, Fran, don't worry about it. With the background that you came from, what can we, it's totally cool. So, all right.
But no, you've gone home after that. Then after the Shotokan Cup, and then you just what was the plan like from there? Was it just right? I'm just gonna train at my own pace, or like what sort of what was? Where did you go from that?
Well, I was still a maniac, and I got really into the club. Of course, my instructor allowed me to start teaching from about brown belt, and because of what I was achieving, the other kids were getting really inspired, and we actually, it was the days when you'd lose most of the club every year because all you were doing was, Kion, Kumite, Kata every single session, which was great. You know, I loved it. And by the time you got to black belt, you really knew your ABC. Like, solid. That's all you've been doing for 3 years, right? And really full on. But I think that's why we lost a lot of students too. But because of how I was, a lot of kids started staying. And I got the best buzz ever when we managed. There was a young lady that I cycled to karate with every week, who lived in the same street as me. Rosemary, her name was. Such a nice girl. And of course, you know, she was such a nice girl, and I started to overtake her, and I think she lost a bit of faith in herself. And I remember saying to her one day, do you know, by the way, this girl was so great because she was ahead of me in as grade, and I always got her to teach me her kata, you know. So I was always training 2 katas at the same time, the one I was going to grade on and the next one. And I said, you know, I really think that you can get your black belt, Rosemary. Do you want me to, shall we work together? Do you want me to help you with this? I'll do whatever you want, whatever you need. And she's like, really? Do you want to do it? I do want to do it. Do you believe you can do it? No, not really. I think you can. I said, you're good enough. Okay. So I started to taste what I could do for other people. And then at the same time, we had this group of kids come up. And then all on one session, we had 5. This was just unknown in the dojo. We had 5 kids going for black belt at the same grading. And they had the spirit with them. Because I started to put my spirit into them as a young lady and kick their asses. And I started to learn Aikido about the same time. So we were having a great time in the club, pushing my instructor a little bit, I must say. And they all passed Shodan. And I just went, oh, wow. Now that is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, I knew that I contributed to that in a really big way, whether anybody told me or not. So it shifted.
Yeah, it's nothing quite like the feeling of like helping someone through that, you know, through the earlier grades and then to achieve Shodan. I mean, even if they, you know, packed up and give it up, like, you know, the next day or whatever, you know, they'll take that with them, you know.
They did it.
Yeah.
It was just so phenomenal. I just loved it. And but I was more and more injured because of overtraining, which became a terrible problem. And I was just in so much pain all the time. And I had to try and also figure out what I was going to do to heal my body. And that's when I started training Aikido at the same time as karate. And that was ridiculous.
Give us a rundown from the Aikido. I mean, I know a couple of people that have trained Aikido. But yeah, I don't really know a massive amount, you know, about it.
No, the absolute reverse of karate. And at that time in karate, we were all taught in straight lines. You know, we weren't taught to move to one side or play your angles or anything like that. It was just take everything straight on, straight back, and then come forward. You know, so when I met Aikido, I started learning about angles and how to move my body in a way that was absolutely lethal, but involved a lot less impact and conflict. And you receive a technique and you move their attack with using as little power as possible. You know, you just use the momentum of their attack. And I was terrible for about 18 months because I couldn't see what I was supposed to be doing. It was very complicated to me. There were so many elements involved. So, and it was great fun for them because, of course, if they put me under too much pressure, I would just suddenly break out I couldn't help it, kicking and punching and giving somebody a quick water-gary and a shirogari, a smack around the head. And I was like, I'm sorry. The corner.
How do you feel how the Aikido complemented your karate, if you could put it, if you put it that way?
So, with karate, you hopefully we feel it more often than we do, these moments of perfection where, do you know what I mean? It's like, that's one of the reasons. Like these moments
haven't
where
been
you go,
they haven't been those moments haven't been coming too quickly just lately, but you know, it's hoping to feel that again someday.
you will. Yeah, and it's like that's really what I saw and experienced more in the Aikido and footwork, and because of my karate mind, how you could do this and so on with a knife attack. Yeah, in an ideal world, I know that's a whole other.
Yeah.
But finish it with karate. If you could build that knowledge into what we're taught, and what we're taught is so linear, was that it completely built out my karate and my mind about it. Just got a lot bigger. And it was exactly the same with the kung fu work as well. It just got a lot bigger, my karate knowledge. And then when I, really poured back into karate again later on, I just arrived with an entirely different karate mind. It's a bit difficult to describe, and a whole bunch of different assumptions which I had, which my instructors in front of me today don't have. JT Sensei does, because he's a very much inside guy.
Yeah.
Kung Fu, sort of Wing Chun-y, in with the karate, you suddenly see, especially with applications in Kata, if you've done some Aikido, you just suddenly get it all. So, oh my God, that's a freaking Aikido move. Oh, wow, that's this. Oh, whoa. Couldn't say it before. Heian Yondan, that's really Aikido-y. That's the best way I could describe it. Unbelievable Aikido Kata. I just wouldn't have got it before. It's straight over my head. Yeah,
it's well, I mean, I've always found like the bunk, like when people are breaking down bunkai and stuff. I've always, even now, I wrestle with that, because I never feel, I feel effective, and like some of the instructors have had is like, if it's on the street, this is like what it's going to be, and I'm like, no. I don't know. I always struggle with the bunkai. I mean, I love karate, I love training, but like when it comes to bunkai, I'm like, yeah, understanding maybe like what that move, you could use that for, but will I teach anyone that like, right, someone who was doing this is like what you would do? I'm just, I really struggle with that.
Sort of
I agree. I mean, there's two factors for me in there that. At the recent course in Wiltshire with Mark Carroll and Richard Sensei. So Richard's like, in terms of dynamics, it's phenomenal. I think like Scott actually as well. This guy was talking about bar brawling, really. So we only did Heian San for 5 hours. So it was deep study of the kata with I guess we use bunkai. Some people say, oh yeah, I know there's a difference. Applications, right? In a bar brawl situation.
Okay.
And it's unbelievable. And, Mark Carroll's saying, if you're doing a prep for your uchiuki, if you're ever doing anything like that for him, that's a hit.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you have the beginning of Heian Sandan, where you're prepping big old smack across, if you like. He's saying, oh no, that's a smack to the jaw. Boom. But I was like, okay. But then I was paired up with a guy who works on a door, who trains with Mark Carroll Sensei, and it's like, I said, okay, so this and this, and does that work? And I was really into what his perspective. He said, to be honest with you, it depends what drug they're on.
Fair enough.
Okay. So in our heads, we're like, oh yeah, that's bona fide, I get that. But if they're on a drug where they're not actually experiencing their body at all, what have we got to do? The other aspect of this, and this is a recent learning, so at the summer camps for WTKO, we're divided into up to black belt to third dan above in a room together. And it was the Iceland camp, so it's like the first camp after COVID. It was the first time I trained with that group, and it was just explained. JT said, look, like if there's hand-to-hand combat, it's going to be over in 7 seconds, or you're on the floor. You've got about 7 seconds. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. Then if we're talking about Kata application, okay, what does that mean? And then it just dawned on me that year how incredibly violent actually what we're doing. And if you, in terms of working out Kata application, for me, it's about distance. If I'm that far back, it's one thing. If I'm in the middle, distance is another thing. If I'm really close, it's something else. And I suddenly understood that the application really works if you are incredibly violent in your mind. I don't know the best way, that's what it means to me. And you are very in their face. And you are in their face before they've landed anything. Then, with that attitude, Kata has started opening up to me, personally. Other people have their other way in. But now it's blowing my mind, because I was told from the beginning, this is defensive sport or art. First thing you learn is Gadambarai, you see? And now I'm like, oh, really? Okay, if you're late, you're catching something here. Actually, you're smacking them in the bladder. Let's do it. That's not a defensive. When I understood that the prep was actually, you're already in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you are in there, if you have that 7-second mindset, then it gets disgusting, I think.
But it was, yeah. I mean, I had I'd never thought of it this way. And again, it's until, like you're saying, like someone explaining to, you know, the application like that. And I remember someone explaining, you know, I think it was like agyuke, like to me, and then it was saying, well, don't use it as a block. Use it as like you're, you know, as in you're step into someone, you know, and yeah, under you know, in the throat, under the chin, you know, and pushing, you know, and it was like, I'd never thought of it like that, you know, because you're always taught it is a block, it is this, and you're just like, oh yeah, we could just use that any way we want, really, can't we? So like,
it can get really wild, and I'm really clear with my guys now about closing down of space, because I think that's a safe. If someone decides to go into a violent action, then that's what they've decided to do.
Yeah.
You know, my mind is, I want to protect myself, but I want to protect my family. Okay. I know I'm a woman, but that's still my thing, you know. We still have the lioness idea.
Yes.
And it needs to be over really fast, because I'm small, I'm fast, and usually if they don't know how to fight, they can be quite cumbersome. So then we're talking very technical, very inside everything, before they have a chance to make impact. And I think that's my only chance, I reckon, as a woman, is not to back off. Definitely don't be in a halfway space. But as soon as there's anything, is to move straight into this, close them down.
No.
And even imagine if it was just as simple as a Gadambarai.
Yeah.
The bladder.
I definitely want to see that bladder shot. Let's
do it.
We'll see if we can find a volunteer.
Yeah,
I can think of a few.
massive idea that we've got in Kata also, because you know we have all these double techniques, and as soon as it was explained to me, no, this is succussive. So you know, you wouldn't go in, you know, Yamochi. You would go low then high, because the reaction of the body, if it's a low blow, the head comes in to strike.
Yeah.
If you head, then you strike down here. Then my whole thinking around it started to shift, and just understand, as I said, the violence combined with velocity. Hopefully, I could do something about what might come onto me. But you know, from my beginnings, as I've explained from my mother, when I have students in front of me, I'm not traumatized by this particularly, and I don't over preach it, but it's just like, this really does save people's lives ultimately. So we would have these hard discussions about, say, what Gadambarai is immediately, if it could arm somebody and save them. Why not?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, like you say now, I can't remember if I brought it up on the podcast before, but my many years ago, like my mother used to train a bit like my mother used to train with karate. I think because my father was the instructor, I don't think it got to a point where I don't think she liked being told what to do, told too much like what to do by a husband in that way, like in the dojo, you know. So it was, you know, but even though she'd trained like many years later, she used to run. A women's centre, and it was like where women who'd been through again abusive situations and things, it was a safe space for them to go. And one day a young I don't know, so there was a young guy or some young guys messing about outside, you know, and she had to go out, outside. It was her job to go outside and basically say, look, come on, move it along, lads. And I think one lad like went for a swing, but I think again the instinctive thing was, you know, Teisho to the bridge of the nose with a swift Mind-Gary stroke football kick to the nads, and you know, the poor lad was in not the best of places, you know, and. I think when the police came to scrape him off the floor, she's like, "Who's done this to him?" She says, "I did." You know, so, and again, she'd probably not done, you know, she'd not done martial arts for, you know, for years at that point.
Wow, that's just fantastic. I mean, just how cool, and I don't think we know until those moments actually what's going to happen.
You don't, and you don't know what you're going to do. You could run a mile. That's not to say that is the wrong thing. You just don't know like what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think I'm much more. I don't think I'm a flight, and I don't think I'm a freeze person, because that's never happened to me. There was one time when I was helping some people in a kids' home in Sweden. We had this incredible immigration crisis, and it genuinely was. And all these kids from Afghanistan were coming in, and Syria. And there was a Syrian kid that for some reason was angry with me because I did karate, you know, because there were a couple of kids in that house that came to karate with me, and he thought, being a woman, I shouldn't be doing this. And, you know, he came into so he's a minor. You understand the implications?
Yeah.
And I was so delighted with myself after this, because he came in for a strangle, and I just basically did kankudai. You know, it was quite stepped back, swung round, and stopped with my fist right by his nuts. Didn't touch. And I was like, "You want to carry on?" And then he went on and on and on at me. At that time, I was like, okay, I just defended him off, shout and shout and shout. And I just thought, oh my God, thank God I didn't hit him.
Yeah.
Right? And there was something, that day I was delighted with my training, because I'd actually held it together appropriately for that moment.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt anyone, and just defended myself and made a lot of noise and did what you're supposed to do. And to think I could have, I don't know, could have really floored him. So I was pleased that day, you know.
Well, I always think that, like, you know, using, like, you know, obviously with using control, I think it's having having good control is obviously very good, but it's always in the back of in my mind when I'm training of going like, well, if I let that go about the other 40% or like whatever it may be, you know, like you'd like to think that would be effective, you know, like.
Yeah.
But so you obviously you've mentioned a few times that you lived in Sweden. So what took you from the UK to Sweden?
Oh, yeah, a lot of hard work and luck. So while I was at university during that whole period, and actually when I put myself back to college, I was like a PA, I think that's what you call it, personal assistant. For very, very many years. But I did it for free because it meant I got to go to the educations and the seminars. Actually, it was my Aikido teacher. It was a really great deal. And then we got to a point where I was just up to university, and someone wanted to give him half a house. Yeah, their share of this amazing house, which a whole bunch of students we lived in, were at uni and stuff like that. And he's like, no, I don't want to own anything. Give it to Fran. got to bear in mind at this stage, I'd been working for him for free for probably 13 or 14 years, something like that.
All right.
Yeah. This house, while I was at uni, doubled in price.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. You know, it doesn't matter what we give out. If we do it in the right heart, only abundance comes back. Big lesson. Big lesson there. And so I finished university. Jesus, it was just of the whole lies and bullshit about weapons of mass destruction and what Tony Blair was doing to our beautiful country, and it was awful. Everybody was angry and being lied to, and you know the situation here in the UK was it was difficult. And you know, I got to the end of uni, and we were working in and out of Sweden as well, and I just saw, you know, how people there were very happy. It seemed like the sun was out all the time. The air was really good. My first son was 7 or 8 years old at that time. So there was still, you know, 5 years old, he'd sat his first exam, for goodness sake. You know, the education got a bit nuts at that time. I was like, so they're still treating kids like kids in Sweden at that time. You know, they don't actually go to like proper school till they're about 7, and even then they wind them in gradually. It was quite a different attitude to early education. It works really well for the kids. And I was just like, my house has just doubled in value. Oh, no brainer. Let's sell it. Let's pay off my student loan and let's move to Sweden. So that's what we did. Yeah, it was quite something.
Yeah. So obviously living in Sweden, was it the case of like, right, I'm going to find you know, you found a karate club over there?
Yeah. I mean, if any Swedes listen to this, let's bear in mind it was back in 2005 and it might not still be like this. But I went to various clubs and I couldn't handle that they took 2.5, 3 months off during the summer.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at their faces. Okay. So for me, it's like, so, okay, no, you know, you need to have a break in the summer and you need to have a good time. And I was like,
But this is my good time.
Yeah. It's what I want to do.
Yeah, this is like, okay, so what can I do? Before I'd moved, I was in Staffordshire. I found an amazing Iron Shirt Shaolin Kung Fu club, right? So I was deep into Iron Shirt Kung Fu and Qigong and Tai Chi at that time. 4 years before moving. I wanted a break from Japanese martial arts, actually, at that time. When I actually got to uni for those 4 years, I was like, you know what? It's been, I don't know how many years, hundreds of years it felt like. I'd like to experience a non-Japanese mindset. So I ended up at this Tiger Crane, this Shaolin club, which was mind-blowing. And so the best I could do is from that, because I was so disappointed with the qualities of the club and their training mindset and so on, I ended up doing Qigong in the forest, man.
No.
Yeah. I just moved away from everybody and everything. I went to the north of Sweden in the end to completely dump my entire peer group. Sorry. I needed to leave, and we just went up into the forest, and what I did up there was Qigong. I'd never experienced anything like it. It was like everything that they said Qigong should do in terms of healing and energy, actually it does do if you do it in the right place. So like if you do it in a room, in a smelly old hall, I don't know, you'll just get more sicker probably. But when you end up actually kind of doing it under trees, kind of mountainy type air, and where nature really is in balance, and you've literally got wolves and bears just up there.
So,
like, you know,
had to keep a rifle nearby, did you, just in case? Move along, bear, move along. Just do him a kung fu. Come on.
Yeah. Mama Bear moved in with her cubs, and then, you know, yeah, we had to be
Class is
careful.
cancelled.
It was serious. You had to whistle and sing if you went for walks in that area, and just make lots of noise, and then they would leave. But yeah, that was another thing. So I just left everything at that point. I was really disappointed. And I have to say also, this is another woman-woman issue with the relationship I was having at that time. That my husband then was so jealous. I I actually wasn't allowed to go training, to be honest.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't that way, like none of that. But you know, if I went out or went training or when I was doing the
still
kung
obviously
fu,
coercive control, isn't it? So
it was awful. So when I met my husband now, and I was like, that was up in the north of Sweden where I met him. We were like an hour from the Arctic Circle, so we were really north. There was a point where I was like, so you're right with me training, do you think then? You know, you got a problem with that? No problem at all. Oh, right then.
that's
Oh,
it.
okay, that's good. Brilliant, you know. So yeah, it was a tough time, but also I had that space to really experience what chi is. And just previous to moving to Sweden, my instructor was doing all that stuff you see the Shaolin guys doing, washing in broken glass, lying glass, having slabs on their chest and not being cut and smashing chopsticks on his balls. And, you know, it was... I learned,
all right. Okay.
You know,
Yeah, full on.
Yeah.
it was pretty full on. And my first iron shirt grading was like one of these old... We don't have any bare walls here. You know those old red house bricks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I snap one. So you sit on an iron girder and you just got to chop that thing dead. I did it.
All right.
All right. Okay.
So after spending obviously so much time in the forest doing qigong, how did did you then move like back more towards civilization and out of the woods?
Yeah. I mean, I really did have enough after a while. It was too much. I was pregnant with my first child up there, and I realised I was totally living in the wrong place in the world. And I moved to about the middle of Sweden. It's along the sort of Oslo to Stockholm line. There's like a trade route there, basically. And then this kid was asking me to open a club up, and you know, I was like, yeah, maybe I need to do that. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. And then I decided to open a club up from scratch. And that was really something, because I think we're all used to coming into a club that's got lots of culture already there. Years of people that we've just got to fill the boots of and keep the torch alive. And so I started a club from scratch, which was quite phenomenal. It was really an experience I never expected to have, but it was really wonderful because we just trained solid basics for years and years again, like you do. You know, just like right back in, and I trained them old style.
I mean, it's to start a club from scratch as well. I mean, that is, you know, well, as we are finding ourselves now, you know, it's not an easy task.
No.
You got it's something about building a culture which is not there. There's no assumptions. People are absolutely coming in with no idea at all. And me with my assumptions coming from the UK with our attitude towards training, which is like, in a way, I understood after, I don't know how many years it took me to understand, people are there for very, very different reasons. I started to do a university course at the time called, was a Master of Science in Sustainability, Health and Wellbeing. And they allowed me to do one of my patients on longevity and karate. That's probably a separate podcast because it's quite shocking. But I definitely went into a sort of karate shock for about 2 months because I needed to review why people were training. I found out this information that our karate masters die on average 15 years younger than not only the town that they're living in, but the place that they were born. And it completely freaked me out. So during that process of creating a club culture, a martial culture, I discovered this information about our methods of training and what it actually does to people in terms of their health and well-being. So I had to completely rethink what I was doing and relearn why people were there And what I discovered really when I asked my group why they were there, particularly because I then had to approach the situation like I didn't know anything about them. And it was social reasons, mental health, because when they entered the dojo, they stopped thinking about all their problems.
Yeah.
Flexibility, fitness, and doing all these things to do with fitness and strength in a safe environment, learning something new at the same time, not just going to the gym and doing the gym rat thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I reassessed. I completely changed my methods of instruction, and it was a really enlightening experience, and it's completely transformed how I teach people now, and the sorts of things I do to help them maintain their bodies, if they'll listen to me, which is rare. You know,
You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink, eh?
I know, right? But I'm quite proud that we never had any injuries.
No, that's good.
Oh.
Yeah, 6 years.
But I mean, it's, as you're saying, like there about that, like the health and well-being. I mean, I remember when I read Funakoshi's book, and again, I probably might quote. Well, I'm not going to even try and quote it, but from what I can remember, there was a part, you know, where it's saying, you know, he's never gets sick and he's never injured or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, like, I remember just reading that book and I was just like, that's bullshit. That's like all respect to the man, but like, I was like, no, I do not believe you. I'm sorry.
It's very, very confusing. And this is what I was lucky enough to investigate in my research that my professors allowed me to go into, is that one of the things about now is it's been called, there's 5 or 6 of them around the planet, and they're called blue zones. Many people have heard about these zones where they have the highest number of people that live over 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Okinawa is one of them. And there are various for that, but a major contributor seems to be sweet potatoes.
All right.
Wow.
But no, they already were an incredibly healthy nation, and the early masters definitely propagated the idea that karate was good for your health and extended your health, and they were convinced of that fact. And well, my research has actually discovered otherwise, completely contrary to that. And I think Kanazawa probably was fine because he seems to equally practice Tai Chi and Qigong.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going to have the fire of karate, that's the yang,
Mm-hmm.
you do need to also have the balancing force of yin, and definitely Qigong and Tai Chi will balance that in your system. Because if you always train 100%, that's the other aspect of it. I know Kanazawa's hot on this. You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You should rarely train over 80% power and force. Like, that's really kept to a minimum.
Mm.
And it should be much more considerate of that. Perhaps if we go into wartime, then maybe we're up into the 100%, which I know I did as a kid, and I got terribly injured. But you burn out, and it puts a lot of pressure on the liver and the kidneys, particularly, depending on your way. But you might notice, I don't know about now, but really hardcore karate people tend to be very reactive and quite more reactive people. And that sort of demonstrates an imbalance in their training and their daily healthy habits, you know, to support, maybe they don't support their karate.
Yeah, I mean, as a young lad that came, you know, was like started training and probably like the sort of like mid to late 80s, as a very young child, you know, and then certainly when I hit sort of like 10, 11, 12, you know, like I remember the conversations with like hearing my father talk with some of like, you know, the senior grades in his club, and you just got to train through it, haven't you? And all the, you know, and it was all that mentality of like, you know, just that hard, you know, like we said it before, like, you know, harder, faster, stronger, you know, just train through it. And even like some of the instructors within, you know, the association that they were in, you know, harder, faster, stronger, just keep going. You just train through it, and you're just like, yeah, you know, obviously like what we know now, you know, through sports science and everything like that, you know, is just no, don't train through it.
Don't do
No,
it.
don't. I mean, there's two aspects to that, and there's training through it in a completely violent, disrespectful way to yourself, and then there's training through it carefully. So you rebuild the injury if possible, and you learn how to move your body in a different way or from a different place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with my hip dysplasia, my lower back disc would slip 2 or 3 times a year. So then, you end up training in a very, very different way to train through it, but with non-violence. It's just to keep the body moving and in some way. So there's a stupid way of training through it, and then there's a way of learning about your body, very carefully training through it and rebuilding. And that's another journey in itself, because I know when my injuries, didn't just stopped clearing up, I became fascinated about this process, and then it's about priorities for me, and what am I prepared to do in order to keep training.
Yeah, totally agree.
I'm 51. That means 2 or 3 gym sessions a week, plenty of weight bearing and resistance training. Absolutely. That means I've got to get my protein intake in. It means taking my sleep seriously. There's all sorts of things. That means probably, depending if I've drunk enough water, training on coffee or bee pollen.
Yeah.
There's things that you can do so that it just doesn't hurt so much. There's all sorts of tricks that don't hurt the body. So for me, it's about priorities. I tell my people, if you want to keep training, you need to do. A lot of them obviously don't, so they don't listen.
Yeah, I mean, it's as well, like,
definitely.
you'll have to, I mean, I remember, like, you keep an eye out for, obviously, as you do, like, keep an eye out for your students, and if you, like, because sometimes you'll get, the wee devils that don't tell you that they're injured, and then you spot that they're injured, and, I'm going to be looking at, Andy here because,
it's true. Yes.
I noticed the way obviously Andy was moving in the dojo, especially when he came back to training. I was like, there's something not quite right here with a hip or a leg or something like that, and something's not operating right. And it wasn't, it was one of those. It was on the back of my mind. I was like, well, maybe it's, it could be just Andy. It could be just Andy. I don't know. I don't know his health. And it was just fine. I was like, is there anything is there anything going on here? And you informed me that you've got an issue, a medical issue with his hip,
permanently injured. So the right hip there's going to end up being no cartilage in it, so it's like bone on bone essentially. And as we all know, Shotokan is hips, and then so completely agree with what you're saying. It's like you're going to have to train in different ways, and then you also have to do, I'm going to call it a risk assessment as well, where you think, right, I've done this amount of training, do I go and do another bit of training? A fine example, we did for 3 hours with Scott Langley, our sensei, on the weekend. And then I'm like, right, Monday's coming and there's another session. And I'm like, it's an endless battle, because your mind's like, I want to go to the dojo, I want to see everybody. But your body is like, don't do it. Because if you do go do it and you do get hurt, you're, as harsh as it sounds, you are done. You're done. Yeah. In a way.
This was the thing. So obviously, when Andy came, back to training, it was just to see how you go, just get into training, see how you go. Obviously, wasn't aware of the injury. Obviously,
neither was I, to be honest.
At this time, and then as you go along, I said, "Well, you need to set yourself a goal. Maybe let's try and aim for that Shodan. Come on, let's set a goal now. You've been back long enough. Let's give yourself something to aim for." And when the fateful day came to go for Shodan, I says, "Look, just make sure just have a note from the doctor, just so the grading panel understand, because they're going to see you move and they're going to think, if they don't know you, they're going to think, well, what the hell is going on with the lower part of his body here? And it was the association obviously that we were in. I think he went to hand the I don't want to obviously speak for you, but handing the doctors, just handing this note saying, look, this is my issue. It's a bone-on-bone issue, and my hip is uncomfortable, and it was almost a thing of, oh, we don't want to know, and it's just like, what?
It was.
You need to be aware of this, what is going on. But I think in the end, they did. I think relent and pay attention about the issue. So
but it was grading day. Yeah, like you just said, you're handing out doctor's note. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a bit funny talking about it anyway, my hip, because like I never have used it as an excuse, and I don't want to be like treated differently because of it. And it's not like, people mean to treat you differently, but they do, because it's empathy and things like that. And we're all guilty of that. But yeah, I remember, I can see it now clearly. I went over it's like being back at school. You're handing a note to get out of PE, aren't you? Like, there you go, here's your note. But they didn't want to know.
But like you're saying, you have to, nowadays, I mean, again, like back in the day, that wouldn't have even been wouldn't have been a thing. I think if your leg fell off, they'd still expect you to, pick it up and carry on.
Yeah, and train through it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I really do empathise. I discovered while I was waiting for my operation, once they discovered that actually, my entire life, been with physios trying to crack open what's going on with my back since I was 16 years old. So it wasn't until 2019 they're like, oh, we don't think it's arthritis in your hip, we think it's hip dysplasia. I was like, what's that? And then anybody, you two, you could look at the x-ray of my hips next to a healthy one. You go, wait a minute. What's going on here? This is weird. There's something not quite right. They're just like literally butterflies. And then I accidentally tore, it's called the labrum, like at the front of the right, trying to teach somebody how to do moshigiri. And then I understand about hip grinding, and then that waiting process, and I couldn't walk for.
And so what was the obviously once you'd sort of got that diagnosis and knew what it knew about it and had the information, was there a process to put that right?
Yeah.
Other than physio, is it surgery or?
Yeah, so people that are squeamish now, I just need to give you the heads up that it's not
a lump of wood and a rubber mallet, isn't it? That's what you're going to tell me.
Okay, so my hips basically were like that, and if you imagine a hip joint should be like that with the bone underneath,
Yeah.
So what they had to do was cut off my hip joint, change the angle of it. So now on my right hand side, I'm actually standing on my right leg.
Right.
And then they've cut the screws in, and they haven't taken the screws out yet.
Wow.
I don't know if they will. So the great thing is, all my spinal injuries have healed.
Oh,
like,
brilliant.
Oh, good.
Oh, fantastic.
I had a slip disc. I'm going to touch wood here. Since then, when I was in a wheelchair for 2 months during the healing process, it was in no weight bearing during that process while the bone is really knitting.
I bet you were still going to the dojo, weren't you?
Yeah.
I was like really resisting. and my guys were like, just holding the fort. And I had an amazing diet of drawing, listening to Dan Pinner. If you don't know Dan Pinner, I recommend listening to him.
The name seems familiar.
His ringtone is like, his whole thing is just effing do it, but without the nice way of saying it.
Okay.
It was him, Joe Dispenza. So Joe Dispenza's work is phenomenal. And a guy called Stephen Jenkins. about die wise. So I do this like when I get sick or in that situation, I get very, very introverted and I go really, really deep. And I discovered some phenomenal things about self-healing during that process, and with that sort of input and being in my own space for 2 months for the first time in my life. Like, my husband came up and I said, right, because I couldn't get down to do the washing, because in Sweden you have something called a tvättstuga, which is like the washing room. All right, let's just get this straight now. Dark washing, what's coloured washing and what's white, you know? Because I was like, don't destroy my clothes in the next couple of months. And it was so good to have those 2 months off. I could wheelchair around the house just about. I had to take care of George, and my first week back, Peter had to go off and work for a week, so it was really weird. But I really understood that there is something so deep you can do about healing that I'd never considered before. And it still works to this day. And of course, I thank morphine, and the combination of those three guys. And it was really quite something to experience such a serious operation. And then after the 2 months, starting to be allowed to weight bear again, was the first time in my life when I stood up, I felt like I was standing on the ground, but I'd never experienced that before. And then, of course, I got to the dojo on crutches, and all my kind of instructors disappeared off, so I had to start teaching.
Oh, for goodness sake. But just thinking, like you were saying there, like when you're healing, either from it could be from an injury or, I don't know, any sort of mental stress even, or anything like that, you know. And like you say, going introvert, I mean, I can definitely relate to that. And it's especially like as well, if like, you know, for you, if you're like healing and trying to recover from something as major as that, and obviously the people around you, you know, life continues, doesn't it? Everyone's got to go to work, do their thing, you know, and most of the time, like, imagine just, you know, left to your own devices and in your own head, I guess. You know, that's especially like going out after a big procedure like that. That is.
It was. Yeah. It was really something, and a very magical experience, and it was an honor to go through that. It was an honor to get my body back and my spine repairing for the first time in my life, because none of my spinal injuries repaired from Aikido. Like, I got a crushed nerve in my middle back and was always giving me trouble, and so on and so on. It was amazing. But, you know, before that operation, thinking back to Andy, I discovered cold exposure.
Yeah.
And the Wim Hof stuff.
Big advocate of that.
Yeah. It helps so much.
Absolutely. And yoga and
yes.
And, you know, 18 months after my grading, I did my fourth dan. Sorry, 18 months after my operation, I did my fourth dan. And I just got into this whole mindset about it. And with, you know, this cold bathing and visualization, I really do understand visualization now. I've taught it for years as well, but this is a case where, you know, when your body, it has been literally chopped up, and like putting everything back together and then making something like that happen, preparing for the grading was an amazing experience. And my thing about grading was not passing. My thing was to turn up, to do the grading with in a perfect state of mind. And it's the first time I've ever done a lot of karate in front of people, and it was with Richard Amos, and these are very deep, intense gradings. There's a lot of Q&A and a lot of demonstrating and a lot of breaking things down and testing your knowledge verbally and intellectually, hopefully, if you're not switched off. And I was in such an amazing state of mind. You know that kid that says, look at me, exactly how I felt during my grading. And the switch was, apart from the visualizing every single aspect of the grading, you know, when there is a really high level downgrading, everybody's really excited to see it.
And it's when it goes quiet as well. And
yeah, yeah, exactly. And everybody, I don't know about you, I just want to see excellence and greatness. And I also want to see, well, what is a fourth Dan? What is a fifth Dan? What is a sixth Dan?
Yeah.
Dan, got to see that in Portugal last year. So exciting. And I kind of almost approached my own grading as if I was a spectator too. And everybody just wants you to be great.
But everybody wants that, but isn't it funny, like the things that you do to yourself in your mind?
Yes.
And like this is I don't like this is me. I mean I I've talked about it before. I've talked about it before, but I mean I failed my third Dan, I think was it like last year, and I'd really like built myself, I'd really built myself up for it, and probably built myself up to it like too much, where it was like on the, what had we done, like 3 days prior, well, 3 days training and then like the grading at the end. And it is again, fantastic experience as in the training, but then like going for it. And it turned out I was the only one going for third Dan that day. So I had to get up on my own. And it was just the extra pressure and everything. And I remember like the instructor saying, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "No, no, I'm really nervous." like for once in my life, I'm really nervous.
Exactly the thing, and that is what, for me, I would pass my own grading in my head if I wasn't nervous and just delighted. That was my thing, clear mind, and I can't remember which kun it is. Actually, it's one of the Dojo kun, and that's what I want to go in, and I managed that. Yeah. So the grade for me was icing on the cake. I really didn't. It wasn't the issue. The issue was my mindset.
Yeah. That was mine. Looking back. I mean, you sound like you're probably a bit like myself. There's, like I can go quite introvert and like rewind everything back in my mind, and so and I can where did it go wrong? What was probably sometimes again a little bit overanalyzing, I guess, and it was just like I just like put way too much stress on myself. There's just like literally no need. The preparation beforehand was good. Just you get to that point in the day, and it's just like no, it's just like
It's really tough, that stress thing. I mean, I'm going to be hopefully, I'm preparing for my fifth Dan now, but this year I just want to enjoy my karate. I want to go into fifth Dan with that state of mind.
Yeah.
But the thing is that having been doing a certain kind of karate and then joining WTKO and just having my mind blown, it's like learning everything all over again.
Did you join the WTKO like when you were in Sweden?
Oh yeah. God, it was a real blessing. Because I'd come back to the UK in 2010 just for a short time. I ended up at Skiff Club, Kanazawa Club.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved that their karate. It was just great. So I came back and I was practicing that, but I was very aware. I didn't want to grade my students at a new club. I wanted to train the shit out of them and take them somewhere else to grade.
Yeah.
I was doing Wiltshire. We didn't do the gradings. I wanted that for them. So we joined JKA Sweden at that time, and we would it wasn't a town really close to us. They would do the gradings, but then there was a Skiff Sensei popping over to Sweden. Can't remember what year actually, and I did my third Dan with him. Not the JKA, and guys, I had no idea I wasn't allowed to do that. It's like,
allowed. Someone is controlling you. You're allowed, yeah.
I was completely naive, and during that phase of being completely naive, I also, the town was only hour and a half, 2 hours from Norway. So you had the summer camp that year, 2014, I think. Amos was there at the summer camp, Langley, Aidan Trimble, is it?
Yeah. Aidan Trimble, yeah.
Was it just those three? I think so. I just had my mind blown. You know?
Yeah.
What is this? What is this? We're talking about dynamically connected karate that made sense, that also when I was really, really, really training hard, I was on the edge of that sort of magic and having those ideas, but you don't say it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm not going to tell.
It's great. Yeah. It's great, isn't it, when you come across those instructors that like just blow your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh heaven! And hey, they spoke English, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, nothing was lost in translation anymore. So this was just really. I needed a sensei. Because I was like Ronin for years, basically. I really needed a mentor. That's a slightly different thing to a sensei sometimes, depending on the sensei. And I was desperate for a proper instructor. So that's when I spoke to Amos that year. And, you know, just like, you're what I'm looking for. I have to say, though, I went away for a year and practiced this coordinated Ozuki, where you're not holding back, then you step and boom, but it's all going at the same time. Yes. So I didn't shove it on my club at all. I just kept teaching them the sort of normal way. And I practiced this Ozuki. Honestly, I'm not kidding, guys, for about a year, this sort of timing thing, because it's really difficult if you've never done it before. It's like, what's going on? It's just, what is this? And then there was one session where I was with a guy, he must have been about 6'1", really overweight, and we were doing Gohon Kumite, 5-step Kumite. Yeah. Just Jodan Shudan. And so I'm stepping back and I'm doing Sotowoki, and he was losing his balance. So you got to bear in mind, I wasn't doing anything else dynamically, really, except trying to coordinate this punch, and it unified my core, my system, everything, coordination, everything. And it blew my mind when he was falling backwards as I was blocking, because it just changed everything about technique that I didn't even think about. I was like, right, that's it then. Okay, and then I came back to the club after that session. I said, this is what we're doing. From beginners up now. We're going to get your foundations in from the beginning. And before that, I hadn't heard about principles before, a few principles that we build to make strong karate. So this is just a complete revolution and revelation for my personal karate and my approach to teaching it too. Amazing, just amazing.
So how and when you were in obviously being in Sweden and then obviously grading with Skiff and then going back and obviously being with Jake, obviously again training with WTKO. So how did that all go down with obviously your association that you're in there? Because like we know, some of these associations out there don't like people cross-training or, even maybe holding another association person's hand crossing the road or something. I don't know. It's all...
Well, me being very straightforward and honest and honourable person, actually, and naive, once I realised that the WTKO karate was just so superior, and that we were going to have to make that shift, and we were all getting a little bit fed up with teaching with rhetoric. What I take that to mean is teaching people by putting them down. All right. I don't respect that at all. My club were getting really peed off with it, and they were really good. You got to bear in mind, my club came in, we arrived on the scene, and every time they rocked up for a grading, they were all double grading continuously for the first 3 grades. So, that shows the level that they were coming in at, firstly. And then they were all like, well, how on earth is Fran doing this? I don't know. I was just training how we train. It wasn't the WTKO stuff. It was just the basic stuff. And then everybody's going like, this is just crap. What's happening to us? I don't like the way we're being talked to and how we're being treated. And I was like, well, listen, I think we should make the shift. The thing is with clubs in Sweden, just to make it clear, every single club is its own association with its own board and its separate entity to an over association. Do you sort of mean?
Oh my God, that sounds rather that sounds rather complicated.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it is, but there still can be, there's still like, say, JKA or JKS or WTKO or whatever, but they have much more autonomy if they want it.
Yeah.
Okay? So nobody can tell them what to do. The one of the reasons it's set up like that is because something called a free drops movement happened, and everybody teaches for free in karate, and you're not allowed to get paid and stuff like that unless you're invited in coach. So it's all to do with old sports movements that happened in Sweden at the time. So I just called Ted, is it Hedlund? And I just called him and said, listen, our club is moving over to WTKO. This is just a courtesy call to let you know what's going on. Everybody's really scared of this guy, me being naive and not really giving a toss, to be honest with you, but wanting to do he's like,
let me guess, the pitchforks were out with he, and
well, he thought,
blacklisted.
I thought, oh, maybe, well, it's only the right thing to do, isn't it? Just let someone know what your intention is anymore. They don't have to gossip about you or bitch about you, which obviously there was some stuff going on there. And he just said, well, I'm sorry you're going, quite heavy, but he said, you're the first person, you're the first club that's actually called us to say that's what you're doing. People just normally bugger off and don't say anything. But the Swedish people are not like the British. They don't like confrontation at all. And that's why you won't get odd phone calls and things like that. No one wants to do confrontation. So it's a very different mindset in terms of handling things. I mean, although he sounded American, Hedlund's Swedish name, but I just had to make the call. So that was one of the happenings that was there. And I think if you behave honorably and actually just take the first dojo-kun that, approach everything with respect. If you do that, then you've done your bit.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to.
Oh.
2 fingers to the world, don't you, at times?
Oh, yeah. Internal style, but then I tend to have a cool experience generally, unless it's my husband who forgets something brain today and organises something else. I did well.
But just dialing it back just a little bit, like you said about, like, I don't know, particular associations, or that, again, that where, in that teaching style of when, that, I don't know, talking down to you, or, this, like, what is, from, obviously you've experienced that. So, like, what, why is that a thing, do you think?
Yeah, I remember coming to the conclusion that, and I was talking to John Mullen about this when he was visiting. We were driving back from a club. He came to visit our club, then we went out to another and stuff. And I'm at power corrupts.
Yeah.
Basically, I think that's the root of it. And in the mix, if you've got people that are orientated towards martial arts that tend to, not always, attract maybe slightly jealous people, slightly envious or competitive people, this is one of the aspects of it, that ultimately is a sign of insecurity. Now, I'm not a psychologist, this is just an observation.
Yeah, no, that would make sense.
It does.
Right, then they stick around long enough and they end up in a position of power and authority, and they're not quite right or good or healthy in their psychology, and then the ego really starts kicking in as they feel their power.
It's so funny because, like, when you said it just like fired something in my mind, and it just reminded me, like, when myself and Andy's father, Will, was training a good few years ago now, and we were at training one night, and the instructor, it was a particular evening. We used to do like a Kata evening, sometimes Kumite evenings, a Kata evening. And I don't even know if we were like about 3 moves through the Kata, and everybody kept getting stopped, and then there'd be a rant, and he'd be telling them, like, why is he wasting his time with everybody, and we're like, it's like literally after that class, I mean, we're all like, and then you'll be cold, and then it's like, and right moves, like 4 or 5, bam, bam, and you're trying to be dynamic. He's like, I'm literally frozen to the bone here, cannot move, like, you know. And I think that was the last time we ever trained in that class again. We were just like, I'm not paying, you know, like, you know, ultimately I'm not going to be paid there. Like, fair enough. I might, you know, okay, I might be totally shit, you know, like, you know, but, you know, like, it's like, come on, like, you know, at least you've been paid to teach a class here. Like, I don't know, there could have been personal issues and things going off, which I guess was probably the thing. But, you know, it was just, you know, that it just, as soon as you said it, I was like, that was probably the worst I think I'd ever seen it. And it was just like, you know, there's, you know, a hall full of people, and you know, they're just sort of like, again, you're supposed to respect your instructor, and it was just like, no. I think my respect is just totally just all gone.
Yeah.
I think I mean, the thing about being an instructor is that I think it's a healthy mindset now, because basically my club is so small that, and having done it for so many years without being paid, it can only be an act of service for me to give.
No, that's the way that's the way we look at it. Yeah.
And it would be amazing, and it was a dream at some point to become a professional instructor, but the structures were not in place for me to do that. I think they're coming in the WTKO. I don't know, hopefully, or there'll be some opportunities maybe to apply for Kenshusei, something like that.
No, I like the idea of that. I do, like, you know, because then if you want to, you know, commit to something like that, I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
I think if there's structure, it allows people that perhaps have been doing it as for an act of service, or they've been doing their like, what's the right word? Apprenticeship, if you like.
Yeah, it's no as me as an engineer is no different than you know, serving your time at college and, you know, then going out, learning your craft.
It would be great to have had those opportunities when I was younger, but I've changed a lot, and I think having a mindset of it being an act of service, that requires much more attunement to what's going on around you, whether you're talking too much, whether people are getting cold, you know, how to serve people that show up and how they show up, and, you know, have a class structure, but then, oh man, we're actually going to have to review this because everybody is struggling with a certain aspect, and I've jumped ahead maybe 3 or 4 stages.
Yeah, well, like reading the room, isn't it?
Yeah. It really, exactly, reading the room. And I think that there was a lot of that didn't happen before. And hopefully not really going on anymore. I mean, I know we were at a course in Exeter where last year or the year before, and I know that, so Amos came down, but lots of people turned up that were doing karate that I hadn't practiced since I was a kid, type of karate, not dynamically connected, bit dangerous actually, really, when it's like that, because you are talking about knees and hips issues, injuries coming along rapidly if they weren't already there in most of the crowd that turned up. So we spent the first sort of hour and a half just sort of revising and rewinding stuff. And as Amos said at the end of the class, you know, I hadn't actually planned to do that. We were going to, you know, do the Kion for Unsu. You know, it's like, oh, okay. But then I've been in those classes before with him where he's turned up and people are practicing karate from sort of 70s, 80s, 90s karate, which is a bit, I think it's dynamically dangerous.
Yeah, I do.
And he just had to, okay, well, we're going to, you know, have to try to put the puzzle back together.
No, I mean, like when he came and taught for us, you know, like I thought that the class he taught was, was fantastic.
It's brilliant.
It was just like just a different, it was just, again, something you get in one of those instructors in, and it was just, just totally, you know, just different.
Different mind. But totally professional. You can see the difference when you've just had a great weekend gone now, when you've got professional instructors come in that really are professional. That's their job. They can deliver something really special, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just to go on, like you said, like I mean, just obviously this weekend just gone. I mean, looking at there's a thing I would say. The thing that blew my mind is like, are we making shapes or what's the bit in between? You know, and certainly with Scott Sensei, you know, like showing these like finer details. And again, someone who's, there are obviously other people out there that can move their bodies in that way, but like, you know, seeing the micro details of like the body mechanics, and then you just sort of stood there going, okay, like I know nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like but it's a great feeling, because it's all right to, you know, this is the thing, it's all right to go, okay, move from like A to B, you know, but if there's no instruction of like what the body is like, or even like, again, not everybody's going to be able to move their body in that way. They just, you know, they've not trained like that to move their body that way. But if you know, then that's the thing, again, to take away from it. If you know that, okay, that muscle or that bit is supposed to be contracting, and that it's all right to just go, okay, well, we're contracting and expanding, but what muscle, what is contracting and expanding, you know, and again, that would be like sort of like what I took away from Scott. Again, like when we trained with Richard, what I've taken, you know, sorry, Sensei Amos, like we what I've took away from, you know, his classes, and looking at just the differences of like how he does things. We're no different than Sensei Matt Price teaching us something different. You know, I'd never done a Junro kata in my life till he came, you know, and like, okay, that's mind bending, you know, or some of his kumite like techniques, you know, and things like that, you know. Just taking that away, like, you know, this is why I think like just getting bogged down when, you know, like when certain associations like they're very regimented, and you know, don't train with these or don't do that, you know, like I just cannot. I don't know. Maybe it's just come with age, like, you know, I just can't see how you just got to open your eyes up. There's more. There is more out there. There's more. Yeah. And
I had a couple of purple belts turn up. They had been in. Oh, he'll kill me for getting it wrong. I think they'd been in Thailand, and that's where they started training. Great instructors by the sounds of it, but they turned up. These two purple belts. I guess they were fourth kyu. And you could see they hadn't been served. They had not been taken care of at all. And, you know, he and Godan was like, he said, we were only taught it like 3 times before the grading. And they had to do kumite for their grading as well, by the way.
Okay.
What the heck? And I got them both now. Well, first of all, we need to discover that his boy's got to eat before he comes. Otherwise, he can't do anything. He's useless. You know, he's really tall and lanky, and if he doesn't eat before he comes, he can't focus. He stands there in a sort of dream. So we figured that out. And this kid's gone from not really wanting to go to karate to wanting to come, because I really engage him. But the both of them now, I think it's taken 4 months. Or when did they come? Before Christmas? Gosh, time is going so fast this year, guys. Have you noticed?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, so it's been 5 months. I would say now they've, you know, like all that stuff we're talking about, these dynamic movements, they're starting to click in, and they're actually starting to look like karateka now. Whereas before, I'm not quite sure what was going on. They were at sea. You would have looked at them and said they're not naturals at all. They're not athletic, to looking natural and athletic just by batting on about the body alignment.
Oh, good for you.
Look up, stop looking down, you know, basics.
Yeah. But I mean, well, as someone who's 6'3", I totally get that as well. Like when
oh, he's really tall, so if anything's off, everything's off.
Yeah. Oh, I can totally get that.
Right.
But again, like that with age as well, because depending how quick they've grown or anything like that, I mean, yeah, like you can end up being like Mr. Soft, you know. It's like nothing's connected.
That's right.
But one question I was wanting to ask you is like how to probably diverting a little bit, but like, you know, how do you feel with like women are portrayed in karate?
Well,
because you don't certainly in the UK you do not see many well, obviously see female instructors, as good self. But you don't see many female instructors like being pushed forward by a lot of associations. I would say, for me personally, what I can, again, I'm not looking at all the associations, maybe what I'm seeing online, on the usual of Instagram and Facebook and places, I'd say, since Sensei Auntie Amos obviously is a very focal, a woman that you see out there teaching. I see the HTKI trying to push like some female instructors, but other than that, I don't really, again, someone might see this video, when this podcast's out and like call me out on it. But I again, it could be what the algorithms on the social medias throw at me. But that's, I'm not seeing a lot.
No, same.
Honestly, it's a question that Yanti and I have been really we're trying to work it out, what's going on. And
is it because of just all the big boys and they've got all the toys, or is that right?
And I don't know how to sum it up. It's really complicated, actually, and it's a lot to do. Let's see. It's to do with embedded language, cultural assumptions about males and females. We have a hierarchical system which is built by men for men. All right. Mm-hmm. We've got the issue of young girls and competition people getting a lot of the limelight, but then, we've always said this: just because you're great at winning doesn't necessarily mean you're a great coach. So I'm not quite sure what happens to them in the mix. You get an issue that, say, at my club in Sweden, we had even after 6 years, we had equal representation for men and women. And it wasn't just because it was Scandinavian. It's because I was the club leader and women could see what was possible and how to do it, even though a woman is aging, right? You've got issues like, I'd lie. We did have one injury. Helena, that was unfortunate, but it wasn't at my class. Soft tissue injuries. So one of the issues, you guys are probably already aware of it, is that after about the age of 45, women start losing like tensile strength. So they have to start going to the gym. So soft tissue injuries and things. It's not a coincidence if you look at like police statistics. Police officer women, they'll start on the street quite happily, but if they've had children, they leave the street. You could kind of argue that women don't mind hazarding their bodies and themselves before children, but may not want to after. Then, guys, just the time when you lot, as men, are hitting your peak, in my eyes, if you've been training your entire life as a guy, I think men in their 50s, you are really peaking. You've got muscle density, reflexes, you've grown up mentally and emotionally. Hopefully you're a good instructor by that time, and you're really starting to analyse really well what you're doing, and it's all coming in.
I'm actually looking forward to my 50s now.
You should.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Okay.
Honestly, guys. Women, on the other hand, we hit menopause. It gets really weird. You can't make up what happens to women. And if they've survived anemia and things like this, if in my case, I'm sorry, I'm being straightforward. So I was
please do.
Never on the pill, so I've always bled out a lot, right? So anemia is a huge problem for me. So maybe I'm hitting menopause now, and then the body's doing a whole bunch of other weird stuff, joint issues, soft stuff happening in the knees and the feet and with the hip stuff I've got going on anyway. Not wanting to go out in the evening. When do we train?
In the evening.
Yeah.
It makes that simple. Like, what do I want to do in the evening right now? I want to cozy up in front of the TV or with a book and like that's me who's been a training maniac my entire life. Like, am I having some kind of brain transfusion? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
And on top of, you have a male-dominated system, and the women kind of start going, you know what, you lot, sorry. You lot are a bunch of tossers. I don't want to do it like that anymore. I don't want to be as part of a club where you're idiotically doing all that, blah, 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 blah. It's not very interesting. And you end up, was it someone said to me when I hit 50, welcome to the decade where you stop giving a shit about what other people think. You have that. Sorry, this is a bit of a long answer, but it's complex. So when women's go through the menopause, there's the hormone starts to drop out about caring about everybody else and what they think as well.
Yeah.
It's so you can imagine it's like, don't care.
Yeah.
So it's so complicated. But there is a real issue with hierarchical language and the women that are embedded in place that hold the hierarchy too, because you don't bite off the hand that feeds you, right? So you have your sensei that's a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Love this guy. He's a great instructor. And you're willing to put up with the system because you don't want to upset him or he's great. You want to carry on learning from this person, but the structure is as it is, and he's never thought about changing it.
Or I guess that they just want to try and keep you down.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you see, I'm always a positive about people's motives, and sometimes, you know, my husband or Yanti is going, Fran, can you just, you know, be realistic about this? I like to think the best of people, and there is a lot of strange things that happen, like when you're teaching. I can get guys, I might give an instruction and they'll wink after I've given an instruction. Would they do that to you?
Oh, no. Well,
maybe Sean might.
Maybe Sean. Sean would, yeah.
But
definitely.
In all seriousness, no,
they wouldn't. No.
You know, there's subtleties, and the great thing, you know, when you speak to Yanti, that's starting to happen is because now she's getting the opportunity to teach a class of 100. She's starting to feed back about the subtle things guys do to undermine her instruction. Which is just, you just want to go and shoot them, really. So can you just shut up and
just have a day off? Yeah,
doing it to
just, you know,
someone,
put your ego to one side. She's going to explain it all.
Yeah.
I witnessed it. She's going to explain it all. Stop asking stupid questions because you're actually giving way more information about you than about Yanti, say. So that's a really long answer to an extremely complicated issue. And one of the things, the walls that we first met, Yanti and I, was actually the women protecting the system. The language is, we had so it's...
I mean, one of the, one I thought was like really, it was really good to see, but obviously like, you know, with our old association now, I mean, I was away, training in Norway one time, and I know that I think there's been a split or something in Norway and everything, but I think before the split, like I say, I can't really speak on it too much now, but on the technical committee at the time there was a female on the technical committee, and I was just like, God, progress. I actually just thought, that's progress. Come on, because and her karate was good. There was no reason for her not to be on their technical committee.
The Norwegians are really unusual. I would suggest globally, and I always check in with what the numbers are roughly when Yanti goes to teach, and I would say, like, at the top of the line, for me, you've got the lot of guys, and there may be 2 or 3 women, and that's what you get used to. It started with more and more women coming in, and this is with the Scandinavian men-women thing. It's very, very different over there. Difficult to appreciate. It's very, very different. And then we would say, like, maybe 20% women, rest guys. then we were discussing, last camp it was like 60-40. It was almost 50-50 this time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like when I went, I mean, you certainly like being in the line. I mean, it was a very big course. I think it was like celebrating like 20 years of the JK. So I mean, like they had, God knows how. Again, I was talking about this the other day, that God knows how much it cost them, because I mean, at the time they had Ueki over, Naka Sensei, I mean, Nimoto Sensei. I mean, they had like all the top instructors over, you know, from JK headquarters, and I was like, how much did this cost? Because that but that by the side, sorry, like the amount of people like in the line, you know, there was a big, you know, I don't think it was 50-50, but there was I always noticed with the Norwegians there was a lot of women training. Yeah,
it's very, very, very different system. The women are much more empowered there. That's very much part of their culture. There are definitely minuses and pluses to that, but when it comes to martial arts, it's a real plus. It's fantastic. And I think the Norwegians have really got the bit between their teeth now, because I know Yanti's coming up a lot. I have just been like, you're the one, you've got to do it. Do it. You know, go for it, because she's in the position. She has worked her social media profile to build up authenticity. She's showed up year after year after year, and she's done the work to create that space so people know that they can rely on her. And she's being invited there, was it 2 or 3 times a year to teach now?
Oh, fantastic.
Good.
Love that for experienced women. They get opportunity, because the argument was when we were first discussing with her and I was like, if you're not given the opportunities, how are you going to get the experience, and how are you even going to get good at it? You know, this is
you do. Yeah. I mean, some of it again, I think we've talked previously, but is like comes down to money as well. You want to make sure, obviously, that you can pay for the event and everything like that. You know, again, travel, everything. It's, you know, if you're teaching full time or anything like that, you know, yes, it comes down to money as well. But it comes down to taking a not taking a risk, but taking a chance, like on both parties, I guess. Like, you know, you know, like I was saying, like, you know, it's again from from our previous association, you know, of having a lady veteran winning her category at the World Championships last year, and thinking, right, wow, like, you know, gold medal, highest ranked female in the association. Again, personally, like my business mind would be like, wow, we need to promote this person,
get her on a course,
you know. But then it's deathly silent. You don't see anything, you know, really see anything. Maybe seen one person I know doing a course with this lady, you know, and you're just like, come on, guys, come on, you've got like a bona fide, like, you know, like world champion there, you know, is
no, really, and then that's the beginning of it, because getting teaching courses is one thing. We should be on grading panels. We should be on executive committees. You know, that are making decisions, because we have a very different way of viewing. Inclusivity. You younger guys, though, honestly, you're a different breed now. So please forgive me. I mean, my son, he's 12. And if there's any misogynistic speech coming out of an 80s movie, he's like, what? How can they say that? I said, just, it's all right. It was the 80s.
Yeah, it was
it was different times.
You know, that's what he was like. So you know, I'm aware that the younger generation don't think like this, but the trouble is, it's the older generation that are in power now.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got to have women up there. And I think I heard somebody say, it was a businesswoman. She did a talk recently in Taunton. I couldn't get to it. But she's saying the thing was, she was the token woman this was a business world. She was the token woman on the boards initially. But then it started to grow. So, a horrible word, but she even admitted she was the token woman. We have to have the people in, prove that women can do it, and they're good at it, and they bring something really good to the table that lifts and increases the value of the offering of any association, because that's what it'll do.
Yeah.
It'll increase the value of the association.
As well, I mean, yeah, you've got to give people like, you know, a fair shot, because I've personally seen it, like, you know, a female karateka like do very, very well, and then I don't know if it's like some, obviously, you know, men's egos like get bashed or whatever. I don't know what it is, and you know, and then they leave or just pack up altogether. You know, and I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think there comes a point where women just can't be bothered. You know, and we're in a system still where the things we're talking about now. So my eldest, he's 27. He's a techno head, but he's got 3 record labels. He's gigging all the time and things like that. But I was telling him the sorts of things I'm up against in the karate world, and he said, Mum, I can't believe we're having this conversation. He said, for me, it's the absolute other way round. Because I'm white, British, male, I can't get gigs. But if I was a chick, a woman, sorry, don't mean to be derogatory, but if I was a woman and I've only got to have an ounce of talent, I will get a gig and be paid more, because that's what's pulling the crowds in. That's so weird. Yeah. He said, what is going on? What world are you living in that we're even having this?
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, it's very, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I imagine we could ponder it for quite some time.
Yeah, I think that the reason I opened Budo Mindset is because of the complete lack of representation. You know, it's like I was bitching one week a couple of years ago to Yanti about the lack of representation in printed material in any of the karate magazines or whatnot. And she said, well, what are you going to do about it then? I was like, well, I'm going to open my own magazine then.
Yeah.
Go on then. Really? Yeah. It's going to be called Budo Mindset.
No, and do you know what? I don't blame you. It's a bit like the podcast. What starts out as a passion project to talk to people that, you know, inspired me. Then you think, no, we need to give. Everybody needs a voice. Everyone's got a story. Let's just hear people's stories, you know. And then again, like when we started the podcast, you know, about how, you know, we like how we connected. And I really think you're on something there with with the online magazine, and obviously having us on board, you know, with the podcast is always is a good thing. But no, you know, and there's some, and again, giving everyone, I guess, a platform and saying, look, if you have a theory or a story or a viewpoint about karate, let's hear it. Let's just put it out there.
Get it written down.
Even if you wanted to be anonymous, I guess, you know, like just put it. You know, you don't have to put your name to it. Just put it out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No, this is the whole thing, right? It's just going to sound really freaking corny now, but it's putting the dough back in karate, right? Because, like, you can rock up and do karate, and we all love the training, like the lovely post that's gone up today with Hayden, you know. Really brave, by the way, because he's sending me a video. I said, I think I can post videos too. Yeah. He sent a video and a blurb about favourite kata and chite. Oh, bloody go on then, mate. Yeah. And it's very nice, clean video with his training ideas about it, to try and get engagement from the community about what their favourite kata is and why.
I mean, because the internet trolls that are out there on some of these karate things, you know, and it's like, you know, someone's probably, you know, been put themselves out there to put a kata. Yes, maybe the front knee wobbled a bit, or maybe this wasn't right, or that wasn't right, but like. You know, the trolls are always out there. They're not going to put themselves out there, are they? They're just going to.
No. It's easier to criticise, though, isn't it?
And you know, it was like when we had John Gardner on. You know, obviously he's like crushing it on like social media and on YouTube and everything. And he's just like, let the trolls have their day. He says if they're commenting, it's getting more generation. So it's just like, go for it.
publicity.
And he's been so good about answering all their comments over the years.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that's how you also increase the algorithm. I mean, they're just playing into its hands, really. I mean, once we all cottoned onto the algorithm thing and how important it is to answer, like, that was just mind-blowing. And I think the great thing about the web page that I enjoy, people can't comment. They can do it on the Facebook page if they want to. We're not getting any negative stuff. But on the actual magazine, there's no place to lie. So I'm there.
Yes, I mean, like it seems to me on some of the karate social media pages that I follow, and it's I actually know one of the people that comments, and I get on with this person, and it is like, why do you feel that? Literally, I honestly just don't understand the drive behind it. Like, it's not obviously a close and dear friend. It's just like as an acquaintance. But you're like, what? Like, have you not got anything better to do with your time? It's always this person.
It's crazy. The keyboard warriors are bonkers, and I don't know. We'll have to see. We haven't had one yet, have we? On the Facebook page, but people have only just started really starting to engage with the actual, which is cool.
Well, again, because that's like, if there hasn't been anything really like Budo Mindset before, then obviously, again, more and more people will become aware of it, obviously, of it, hopefully, as the popularity of it grows. But again, it's just being like that. It's just down to the content again, like what you are, you and other people, obviously you as editing it and obviously managing it and everything, and then everybody, all the contributors, it doesn't, yes, there's many positive things about karate, and then there's lots of negative things as well that need to be addressed and talked about,
which aren't
talked about, or like we know certain things are swept, a lot of the time by associations, just swept under the carpet, and it's again, these associations will be like, batting up the hatches and protectionist about everything, but just look, own it. These things exist. Talk about it. Let's see. Try. It doesn't. Things don't need to try. Try and make a change. Things don't need to be that way.
No, at all.
Let's evolve. And
yes,
it is with karate do. Do is a path. It's a dharma, and the people that are really into their martial art, it affects everything, like their whole life. It's so multifaceted, and I really like the aspect of, because it doesn't really cost anything, it's just time consuming. I can just put all this stuff on there to talk about all the aspects that, after a training session we would just witter on about, or oh my God, that bit in Chinte, blah, 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 blah. It's really hacking me off at the moment. And someone, or, oh, I've got this kid who's got so much out of his training. Look at this. Oh, Yanti's post. Where are all the women in Shotokan karate? I cannot believe their Facebook post. Yesterday's evening's got like 74 hit opens. Today, when I checked this afternoon, it was 179 or something, the new one from today. Yeah. In a title, because it's a bloody good question. I know I don't want to go back, revisit it necessarily, but your two posts from last week, brilliant, because people want to know clearly. They're actually voting for the style of post by the number of people that click on it. And by the number of hits then on the webpage to actually go to read it. Like, oh, what's with that then? Oh, right. They're showing that they want to know about it. And interestingly enough, with your two articles, it was the first ones where most of the readers were non-followers, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Which is really interesting. Because I also know that there are people, because social media is watched heavily by certain associations, I know that a lot of people will not be liking or following because they can't.
Yeah.
Follow.
Because they can't.
Yeah, they can't.
They can't.
They actually run the risk of being kicked out or inhibited in their own association. So I found that figure really interesting. I was like, ooh,
I know I probably think like we'll have to revisit some of this, like even in like just a different podcast at some time, or a separate like a separate conversation. But like, is there what's the particulars that if I would say what's the more like the negative things that you're finding about like people that want to talk about on Budo Mindset? Would it be I know with Andy's article, like the controlling aspect or coercive control, and the politics and things. Obviously, everyone always says politics in karate, which I heard. Obviously, again, I've heard that term used from the age, from as long as I can remember. But I don't know. The older I get, I think like, is it politics, or is it just personalities and egos? Yeah. And it just has the label of politics on it.
Yeah. I think. Right. So, on a global scale, life is life, and there are general themes that we all go through every day. And no matter where we are, it's a quote from a really stupid film, I can't remember what it is now. No matter where we are, there we are as human beings, right? As ourselves. So what I mean by that is whatever we're doing, we take our life, our politics, our mindset, our emotional problems, our physical problems to where we are. And I really think that one of the problems with the dojo is that it's like a microcosm, very intense and combustive, of the macrocosm. And it is the one place where really crappy behaviour and amazing behaviour gets a spotlight put on it. It becomes really intense.
But it's like I didn't want to like obviously focus solely on the negative, because again, like obviously anyone watching this would think, oh God, why the hell would you do karate? Like you say, that there can be like a lot of negative, but there can be a lot of positive. But again, like being the humans that we are, anything negative happens to you, you tend to remember the negative more than the positive.
We have this, we're this problem-solving machine. I mean, I think that the issues that are coming up is like abuse of power.
Which I'd love to do. Like say, if you're up for it, I'd love to do a separate one. Just a separate discussion sometime about that, because it does seem to be quite a big issue, I think, within the karate world.
It's a recurring theme.
It's huge. So there's that coming up. There's women being really. I get quite a few private messages. Brilliant. Love the breadth of content. So I think we're sort of cracking open what people actually want to discuss about. Like, you've got a lady in there. She was anonymous. How karate helped her out of eating disorders, and we're not can be a one constant. That is the stabilizing factor in very tumultuous life. There's a lady last week, Dawn, really totally crazy life in many ways. Martial arts was there, so it's you're getting this kind of balance of really powerful, difficult stuff going on, and then martial arts, how it's supported. These are overall themes that I'm getting coming in. And then we're trying to balance. I'm trying to balance the crappy stuff. Actually, God Universe is sorting it out. I'm getting a really nice balance of stuff from week to week, of like slightly difficult stuff. The dojo dilemmas, is
I quite like that when I saw Yanti Sensei was doing the dojo dilemmas. When I first saw it, I was like, well, I'm not sure about it. But then I actually really like it. It's just a good little twist on and again, just getting people to message something, anything in about it, isn't it?
Well, we got, because what we were laughing about it initially, that we should have like Kate's karate corner, a coffee corner or something. And we're like, the gossip corner, because that's the other thing about martial arts or karate. The gossip is unbelievable.
Oh, everybody loves a good gossip in the karate.
The real rumour mill.
One specific place where, on a very serious note, and this is horribly serious, where if somebody needed to, they could come forward and write to us. Because there's stuff that's gone down in the past, went on for years, and there was no place for anybody to come forward and just say, hey, I actually have a very serious problem. You and I know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to voice this on air, but what if there had been Budo Mindset then?
Yeah.
Over the last 20 or 30 years, what if Yanti's Dojo Dilemmas had been there and somebody's going, I'm not actually getting the safety net in my own association and I need to talk to somebody. Right?
Yeah.
The Dojo Dilemmas we set up as both. First of all, we were kind of just feeling naughty and it was funny, and then we have realised the very serious nature of it. And that's why it's there.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to whistle blow, they're very welcome. And with Yanti being an international lawyer, which she was for 20 years, being super intuitive and very, very smart, and having a great team behind her as well. We have some amazing sensei behind all of us. We have our elders. That hopefully nothing can go on in secret ever again. And I don't mean to be rude or threatening here, but I am being threatening, actually. For real.
No.
No, that stuff that happened before, it's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure that there's a forum for people to come forward.
Yeah.
There's a very serious side to this.
No, I know, like when we've spoken in the past, it's some of the things that goes off, within associations. You try and explain it to people again, like either people who aren't in the karate world or anything like that, or even some people are. And I think again, some people in these. I say these associations in a association, could be any association. There's like they just get tunnel vision, and you could say, look, there's either abuse of power or any sort of abuse going off, and nah, mate, I'm not interested. Whatever, I just want to train. And
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, right, okay, yeah.
No, it's I think what I've noticed dealing with bullies over the years, and we all have, is that as soon as it comes out in the open.
Yeah.
There's a threat of it coming out in the open, and everybody knows, and somebody whistle blows, the bullying stops.
Yeah.
There is a forum like Budo Mindset where that can happen.
Yeah.
Potentially. And I don't have to care about advertising, as I've said to Andy. I do all this myself. I have to just take care of the health and well-being and safety of my family, which is a serious issue when we're talking about some of the issues in the background that we're not mentioning.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters in the end is our families. But if there is a forum where, hey, come on.
Yeah, I definitely. Think certain situations and things that get then things that go off in these associations, they do, bullshit needs to be called.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of I think as well, like, probably exposes is the wrong word, but like if it's talked about, if it's out there, then it might make the people who are the naughty ones behind it think, oh shit, we better stop doing this, or the net's closing in, I bet. So it is sort of subtly calling out people who are doing it, which is brilliant, because obviously because of the restrictions we do have of like calling people out and things like that, at least that way it's like, we know what you're doing, you need to stop. This is our platform to show that, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it does.
It is, yeah.
You know, I know since Stuart Amos obviously, came forward, and I've got so much respect for that young man. He's younger than me, so he's a young man. There needs to be, a forum or some place to call that sort, that sort of stuff what he went through, or in the all the psychological stuff and the mind games and everything, all that stuff. There needs to be a forum. But again, we shall, I'm sure we'll have this just a separate conversation. But but with Budo Mindset, like, where do you see it? Where's it going? What's what does the future hold for Budo Mindset magazine?
Well,
like and subscribe straight away.
Yes, definitely do it.
If I've got anything to do with it, and if the universe is willing, I'm going to be moving forward into basically a Budo Mindset publishing house, basically. But it'll be a publishing dojo, of course, just to keep the tradition alive. And so the first Budo Mindset magazine should be going to print. There'll be a midsummer edition.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be available on Amazon.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Excellent.
So there's some technical issues with Amazon printing, in that it won't be able to be called a magazine because they won't print magazines. But it will be going to print with the best articles. Midsummer is the plan for the first one. The reason I want to use Amazon is print on demand. I don't have to stock, and it'll be available all over the world. Simple, right?
Fantastic.
So, definitely.
So that's the first stage. But then, over the years, there's a lot of stuff missing that I need in terms of printed material that will be published through the publishing house as well in a similar format. So things like really karate training journal, they're really missing. I've had to scrape myself up off the floor so often with, after the hip operation, being sick with iron poisoning and just bizarre stuff. Where I'm like, right, how am I going to start this week? Okay, I whack open my self-designed training journal and I get going again. Like at our level, how do you keep track of your Kata rotation, for example? You've got a lot of Kata to rotate through, and you can end up specializing in one. But hey, dude, there's all these others, and then you have Kata. So there'll be training journals, and also I want to design them for clubs specifically as well, so that you will have your own club stuff on the front, instructors, contact details, and the types of things you want your kids to keep. We should all get into the habit of keeping a training journal, right? So like Kata-specific journals too. So I'm at the stage now where it's such a pain in the ass, years of journals with, Basai Dai here, Chinte over there, Unsu there, blah, blah, all these different years where I want one per Kata now. So that's coming next as well. So I'm going to bring out like a range of journals. So Budo Mindset, the online thing, will just keep going and growing. And then it'll go into paper print every so often when we've got enough decent articles that we think, now that one's a keeper. And this is what we want to remember this year about, or this last 6 months, something like that. Initially, I was going to do an Asai one. I can't find who owns all those brilliant photographs, honestly. So I can't do it.
Right.
I've got writers, but there's a few things like photographic rights, So that's where it's going. It's going to go into print over time.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent.
You know, I think going to print will then pay for itself and for my time, because I'm on it. It probably takes about 1.5 to 2 hours a day now to upkeep it and do all the stuff. Got the time at the moment, so it's okay. But my ultimate aim is to have a small team paid and working on it. So I'm thinking, a team of about 4 or 5 people ultimately. So definitely aim.
There you go, Andy. Get your CV in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where it's going. As long as I've learned not to force things over the years. So that is my suggestion to the universe of what I want to happen. And have you seen that film with Ed Sheeran? I think I mentioned it to you before. He said, and all of this is by my design. With everything that happens to me, I've spoken and written into existence. And that is where Budo Mindset's going. It's going to be, there'll be a small team that are employed running this thing. There'll be a publishing house, and that's just the beginning.
Oh, brilliant. No.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's fantastic, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good.
Well, reach for the stars, man.
Yes.
Reach for the stars.
Yeah.
Nowadays we can. Technology has made so much possible that there's no reason not to. As long as I have the time and the will and the enthusiasm, unlit.
Well, it's quite a deep question, but I usually ask this one. But what does karate mean to you?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Straight off, it is my one constant. So, by how I'm able to show up, who I'm being, I can always test in the dojo. It's like my one constant. So, and I don't even mean like, I'm not touched when I go in the dojo. What I mean is like, I turn up to train, and if I'm having a really crap day, or my body's off, or my emotions are out, or my headspace is off, I can't do karate. It's getting to such a refined internal experience now that I know when something's off, even if I don't know it by the way I'm able to just do Kion. Just do my kata. It's like, my balance is terrible today. What's that about? It won't be an injury, it'll be my internal state. So it's just got to a state where it's a one constant, and it is my one shot of experiencing mastery. And that is a mini obsession for me in my life. I want to understand mastery. And because I've been around for so long, I believe I have a possibility to experience mastery through karate. What that means.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Like when I'm dead and I'm at the pearly gates, I'll be really packed off. Come on! It's a serious matter for me. It's a deeply spiritual one, and I'm really devoted to this in a very innocent and open-hearted way. And I think people don't get me a lot because I have almost total beginner's mind.
No, it's good. It's good.
Really good.
Yeah, Simon Bly says that too. He says you should approach everything with a beginner's mind, and and do you know what, like I can put my hands on and say I did not approach things like a beginner's mind, and I was, and like I am now getting my head around, that, and that is it's probably the best way to approach it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the downside of that is, I have to sort of just mention this, is that when I would turn up for camps, I'd always put myself in the middle and at the front, so nobody knew what grade I was. They still don't. Front, middle, and what becomes very interesting is the way they treat me at the camps.
Yeah.
Because I'm just beginner's mind. I'm there to be a sponge. I'm not there to do anything other than learn.
Yeah.
And I would have purple belts and brown belts trying to teach me how to do it. Like, this is ridiculous. Then I discover, well, it's all about my approach, how I'm turning up to learn. All right, that's good, but it gets annoying at camps when you have a purple belt correcting you, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing of like in the, I always find that funny, like in the line, and you're just like, you could be there, go to a course or whatever, and that you know, you don't know, and might not know many people there or anybody there, you know, and like, again, I don't know. I've always been the thing of like, if I'm next to someone in the line, you know, maybe I just, I don't know, it's just me. I wouldn't, I'd probably feel a bit rude if I was just sort of like, sorry, mate, but you're not quite doing that.
Yeah.
Right, you know, right. I don't know. I'd find that like really awkward. I have had it like done to me, and like, you know, someone was telling me once, you know, like this was a few years ago, I was moving a bit quicker like back then, you know, but it was, you know, I was just beating them to the punch all the time. And then this person was like telling me, you're doing it wrong, you know, like, and I was like, no, I don't think I am. I think I'm just moving quicker than you, you know, like, but yeah, again, like, I find that, like you say, is very, you know, I find it, you know, it's a funny one, because you could have someone, again, if it was someone that was like, that you knew that was like, you know, higher up the chain, I guess, than you, then like fair enough, like maybe fair enough. But yeah, when you're at somewhere and like you don't know anyone from Adam or something like that, then it would be.
It's like, I was like, please leave me alone so I can just train. You know, this was then I figured it was my problem. Okay, so what I did was develop an alter ego. So when I rock up at camps, I have an alter ego now. Just so people will leave me alone. And I tell you, it worked.
Do you just give them dead eye, like, as soon as they're like...
It's an attitude. What I do is I look up the line and I look at how the higher grades offer their hands on their hip, acting like they've got the biggest, you know, pair of nads in the world. Well, I can't really do that. Okay, but I do need to have a bit of an attitude when I turn up. And if I suspect someone's about to give me some crap, and you can usually feel it all they do, I start instructing them a little bit, and then they just shut up. Just
get like the four fingers, and you're like, come on, all right. They're my stripes, mate. They're my stripes. Leave me alone.
And then, so there's an aspect of this, like turning up with beginner's mind, is like by Monday after a weekend camp, I'd want to commit karate suicide. I was like, this has got to stop. You know, what am I going to do about this? So then there's this whole confidence thing. I didn't tell you before, because I know this two-part about the lobster thing, did I?
Yeah, you did say, because you was, yes.
So it's about attitude. So what I did for most of the weekend is either stand there with my hands on my hips or behind my back, like this, stand with feet just a little bit wide, and a Mona Lisa smile if I can, but I would do it all weekend in between times when we were standing up or waiting. And so that also stopped people trying to teach me, and also helped me not wanting to commit karate suicide on the Monday. I was drip fed feel good all weekend, confident. So there's a double thing to beginner's mind, but that's just like generally my attitude, and don't necessarily help. People don't take you seriously, but I'd rather be a learner than, a closed door, I think.
Yeah. Well, Fran, I want to thank you ever so much. I'm sure we were going to have to do another part again, I'm sure, of this, and we'll talk 100%. About many other things, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
But I want to thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. But Andy always finishes podcasts with his famous question, so he will have. He has got I think about 10 questions for you. 10. Try and keep them nice and nice and quick. Try not like
quick. Here we go.
Don't overthink them.
Yeah,
I'll hand you over.
Here we go. Favorite kumite technique.
Favorite kumite technique.
Yeah.
Oh, blood my neck. Before my hip operation, washigari, hands down.
I can relate to that. It was mine, yeah.
Every time, hands down.
Favorite kata for bunkai?
Oh.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love Heian Yondan because it's also so Aikido-y.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think that's a good one.
Heian Yondan, take it. Let's go.
Favorite kata? Just favorite kata, no bunkai.
Oh. Right now it's Goju Shihosho.
Fair enough. Best male competitor, in your opinion?
This is like
Best male competitor, past, present.
that you've seen
Yeah,
compete.
you've
that
seen
that you've
compete.
seen compete.
Yeah.
Like live.
It could be someone that
could
you've
be,
seen on
yeah.
YouTube or like anything. Just in your opinion.
Yeah.
Yahara, Kata. Yeah.
Okay. Now, best female competitor.
Yeah, it has to be my unicorn from when I was a kid. The lady that we talked about earlier on that used to train at Marshall Street.
Oh, a Sensei Sue. I can't remember. I don't know her last name. I just know a Sensei Sue. Yeah.
Oh, hands down, you should have seen her at the regionals and the Crystal Palace, and that's like, who is this unicorn? Who is this magical being? Amazing. And I was aware when I was fighting, she was watching. Then just slaughter me. Like, I had no idea there was such a strategy when clearly there was.
Okay.
So Sensei Sue then, yeah.
5-person Kumite team. So it could be mixed, past, present, whoever you want.
Ooh. Me?
There's one.
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Why not?
Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yahara.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, but Amos.
Yeah.
Defo, because he's got that deadly Shirogiri. There's one more in it.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah. Oh.
Ronnie Christopher.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yes.
I like the one.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Right. 3-person Kata team. Again, any same rules apply.
Again, could be mixed. It doesn't have to do, it's
whoever
not
you want.
whichever.
Kata team, Osaka.
Yep.
Yeah. Just for the hell of it, I'd love to put Ubal in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be really tempting.
Yeah.
So Osaka, Ubal.
Yeah.
Wow, there was I don't remember her name. She completely changed how kata started to be done. Saw her. She was a Welsh young lady, a Welsh girl. I think she might have been Emma. Don't even know her name. We're just going to have to remember it's this incredible.
We can go with Emma.
The Welsh Dragon. We'll call it. That's it.
Yeah,
Emma.
Dragon. I mean, she changed the face of how kata started to be done at that time.
Excellent.
Did I mention myself yet or not?
That's three.
That's
So
three.
you've had three: Osaka, Ubal, and Emma.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Three person.
You don't have 5 people kata teams, do you?
No.
Not yet. It could be a thing.
Yeah, Emma. God, wow, that was bizarre.
Yeah.
Everybody went.
Have to track it down.
Yeah.
Greatest karate achievement.
For me.
Yeah, for you.
After my hip operation, rehabbing myself without any expert physio experience, helping me. I completely did it myself. Coming out of a wheelchair, first karate session, I couldn't even lift my foot off the ground, and then doing my 4th dan 18 months later and being nearly completely rehabilitated, and my kata was Nija Shiho. That's always been my tupu kata, and having to do that effing kikomi,
Oh, who likes a kikomi? Not when you've got bad hips. Karate moment. Favourite karate moment?
Coming 4th in the regionals, Kumite. I don't know how old I was. Best competition of my life. Because I didn't get through to the finals, I got to fight loads and loads and loads of people, including Sue. That was just the best. And I didn't have to do the finals. I loved it. I had a brilliant day. No pressure of the finals. That was brilliant.
And final question: the instructor who has had the most lasting effect on you?
Yeah, it's got to be Richard Amos.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't. There was karate life-changing moment. I had to do Ozuki, and it's like I thought I did that on my first session, and ever. And I don't know how many years later, it's like, what the heck's going on here? And that will never, ever, ever go away. His instruction and being able to train twice a week with him on Zoom is just freaking gold. I'm in my golden years, I think.
Oh, excellent.
Just amazing. I know I didn't say annoyed her, but he's, you know.
No, but it is what it is. You've made the choice. Don't worry about that. It's all good. It's hard. You know, if we said like you could pick 2, 3, 4, no, it's that one again. Like that.
It's just
It's got to be Amos Sensei.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that wraps up
That's
Andy's questions
Wraps
there,
up.
Fran. Again, we just want to say, I know it's quite late now, but thank you ever so much for being on the podcast. I definitely know we'll do more in the future.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
if it's on here or if it's on Budo Mindset.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Let me talk to you.